I know I'm going to end up disappointed by the end of the night, but sitting here now where ignorance is bliss, I am so excited for the after show.
You've been on fire with the list puns recently. They've been, well, I don't know if fire is really...
Don't encourage him.
You've been on this mud waterfall.
All right, so Rob Sayer writes, Casey mentioned the Oracle Android Java case in the S3 API conversation. So to back up a half step, we were talking about, is it okay to copy a developer or another party's API? Is that cool? Is that not cool? And I'd said, there was a big lawsuit between Oracle and Android, who had basically copied but re-implemented the Java APIs, or at least that's my vague understanding of it. So anyway, Rob continues, the Supreme Court said that this was fair use. I've always found this case funny because Oracle, in fact, copies the S3 API. So here it was, Oracle took Google and Android and so on to court saying, you copied our stuff. And then Oracle turned right around and said, we're going to copy the S3 API. That sounds great. Thank you.
I'm sure what Oracle would say is that, APIs are not all the same. We're talking about a, programming interface or local code in a machine, and this is a network protocol, HTTP requests with certain paths and parameters and so on, and that's totally different. These days we think of them all as APIs, but there is a case to be made that if there was to be some kind of law coming out of that Java Oracle thing, it might not apply to network APIs.
That's a fair point. And with regard to Marco's tear, which I thought was justified at the time, about Apple in the hypothetical Apple car, they wouldn't want to put any branding on the tires. They would want a completely flat tire. You didn't go so far as to say white walls, but you never know. If Johnny's still contracting, it could be. He loves his white rooms.
You know what Johnny would do? All white tires and just pretend like they don't get dirty. Just
right.
That's the same way. There's never a power cord in their product photography. Just what, we're just gonna have this white car driving on this white storefront. This white Apple Store floor as the demo with white tires, and forget what it looks like in the real world. It'll always look like this.
Well, they'd have a space gray option too.
If it's all white with white tires, and am I contractually obligated to buy one? Is that how this works?
It would just happen to you. That's what happens with white cars.
It would just happen. Anyway, so with regard to Apple wanting brand-free tires, TK wrote to us to point out an article about how Ford apparently demanded that Goodyear remove the Wrangler branding for tires installed on Broncos, which I thought was very funny.
Yeah, although they didn't, as far as I can tell, they're not removing the word Goodyear. And when they removed Wrangler, they only removed it from one side. It's just remove, if you're going to remove Wrangler, remove it, they only removed it from the outside side, so it's still on the inside. Just seems kind of half-hearted all around.
Well, and I'm sure there's probably practical reasons, maybe when they stock these tires in the warehouse, they could more easily see what they are or whatever. Who knows? But yeah, it's kind of funny that there's this weird fluke that a popular line of off-road capable Goodyear tires is called the Wrangler, while also elsewhere in the car business is a popular vehicle called the Wrangler by a different company, which is kind of this amazing failure of trademark law. These two should never have been allowed to coexist in the same industry, but oh well.
A tire and a car. I mean, you can drive your Bronco while wearing Wrangler jeans, probably.
Yeah, but that's a whole different industry.
That's a different industry.
I know it's a different, but tires and an entire car, it's fine.
All right. Well, regardless, friend of the show, Sam Welsamid, who you might remember from a recent episode of Upgrade, which is very good. Anyway, Sam writes to say, Apple doesn't have to be stubborn about unbranded tires. They just have to specify it and probably pay a premium. But any tire maker would build them whatever they want. Even when they leave the branding on, the tires that are supplied from the factory are almost always unique to that specific model. OEMs frequently spec unique compounds or other characteristics to meet their performance requirements for handling, braking, etc. If you look up tires on, say, Tire Rack, you will often see tires labeled as OEM or aftermarket. They look identical, but they may have different rubber compounds or even different internal construction. The aftermarket ones are the generic version. I had no idea this was the case, so I thought that was fascinating. Moving on. John, tell me about your TV. Do you have any updates for us, please?
I do have a handful of updates. So first, on the whole Wi-Fi front, my television wouldn't connect to Wi-Fi. We had some ideas from folks out there. First is from Jeff C., who said, asked if your date and time is set correctly on the TV. He says, my Sony TV wouldn't connect to Wi-Fi when the date and time was incorrect. That is a common thing. Also a common thing for SSL certificates. If you're connecting to websites and it's telling you the certificate's invalid, make sure your date and time are set correctly. Now, most modern devices, especially ones that connect to the internet, connect to some kind of network time service. You don't have to really do this manually like in the old days. And on some, very behind the times electronic devices. The very first thing you do when you turn it on, it would ask you to set the date and time. But these days, if there's an expectation that it'll have a network connection, they don't ask you to do that. So they should be set correctly, but it's worth looking into that maybe NTP server, you can't get to it on your network for some reason, or there's some kind of problem, or it thinks it's in the wrong time zone or something. So that's worth checking. That was not the problem with my television, however. Justin Winchester says, make sure you have limit IP address tracking turned off for your home Wi-Fi or your phone. Also, make sure local access is turned on for the app. This is so when you do something on the TV and it says, hey, just launch the YouTube app and press a button and we'll sign you in, right? He says the limit IP address tracking should be turned off on your phone and on your Wi-Fi. I don't think that's the problem. I double-checked it to make sure. I don't have that turned on, I don't think, on any of my devices. And also the local access thing for the app. That's when you launch an app and it prompts you and it says, whatever app wants to be able to access the local network. And you're not sure what it means, so you just say, okay. I always just say okay, too. So I don't think either one of those were the problem. Unfortunately, I haven't had an opportunity to set up another app since I already did all my setup. So I haven't tested these theories, but it's two more things for people to check if you're having problems with this. None of these helped obviously get my television on Wi-Fi. The thing I was thinking of when I was messing with it, the very obvious first thing to try is how about just unplug the Ethernet? Because maybe it gets cranky that you have Ethernet and Wi-Fi at the same time and it can't handle it. Just wants there to be one network connection. It's not sophisticated enough to handle both of them. So just unplug the Ethernet. And the reason I didn't do that immediately is, I got to crawl behind the TV again. I got to pull off that panel. I got to unplug the cable. I thought I could get it work and I didn't want to go crawl behind there. But eventually I did crawl behind there because I was behind there for other reasons, which we'll get to in a minute. And yeah, if you unplug the Ethernet, it connects to Wi-Fi just fine. So that's a pretty cruddy limitation of whatever version of Android, Google TV thing this is running, that it just can't handle Ethernet and Wi-Fi. If you have Ethernet plugged in, Wi-Fi will never, ever connect. But as soon as you unplug the Ethernet, it connects just fine. And the reason I was interested in that is something I discovered about my television that I should have known, but maybe it didn't concern me. All right, so there's an app that comes with the TV. It's called Bravia Core. Lots of listeners to ATP wrote in to tell me, hey, I've got a Sony TV too. Make sure you don't ignore the Bravia Core app. It's a terrible name. Bravia is Sony's brand name for their televisions. Technically, my television is the Bravia XR, blah, 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 right? The Bravia Core app, it's a movie app. Sony is also a movie studio and they have a bunch of movies, right? So you can pay for, download, or stream movies from the Sony movie collection, maybe others, I don't know. But the advantage of the Bravia Core app is, one, when you buy the super expensive TV, it comes with 10 credits to get movies. So, hey, free movies. I think each movie is 1 credit or something, so I can get 10 movies if I want, as long as they're Sony movies. And 2, apparently, Bravia Core movies let you either stream or download or both movies in much higher quality than even the iTunes store. That they're 4K, full res, high bit rate, maybe not as high as Blu-ray, because Blu-rays are 60 gigs a movie or whatever it is, but much higher than you would get on a typical streaming service. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. I should check that out. But then I heard from other people and they said, oh yeah, I tried to use the Bravia Core app, but I couldn't play the movies back at the high bit rate because it would stutter. My network connection wasn't fast enough to keep up. And I was like, well, I won't have that problem. I'm plugged into Ethernet. But then some people were saying, oh yeah, I'm on Ethernet too, and I also can't get my Wi-Fi to connect. But by the way, I was trying to play movies from Bravia Core, and they were stuttering even when I was on Ethernet. And the reason for that is that the Ethernet is 100 megabits.
Oh, no.
I don't know what century this is, but you would think 100 megabits is plenty for a movie, because most things that are on streaming services are single-digit megabits. It's heavily compressed video. This is the magic of modern compression algorithms. You can watch the movie and it doesn't take up, you don't need huge amounts of bandwidth. That's why people can get away with it on Wi-Fi, because even though the theoretical bandwidth on Wi-Fi is very high, from wherever people's televisions are to wherever their routers are with interference from walls and stuff like that, maybe you're only getting 10, 20 megabits at your television. Heck, maybe you're getting 9 megabits. That's still enough to stream most things, especially if it's not 4K content, right? So it's 100 megabits. And apparently 100 megabit Ethernet is not enough to stream some of the bigger, chunkier movies that are there. And so, the first thing I did is I wanted to check what kind of speeds I'm getting on Wi-Fi, because people saying, don't use Ethernet, you should use Wi-Fi because you can get higher than 100 megabits on Wi-Fi. So that's why I unplugged the Ethernet cable, connected to Wi-Fi, and then I had to figure out how fast the Wi-Fi is. So I needed to get a speed test application. And I had to get it from like the Sony app store, right? Because I can't do it on my Apple TV or something, because that wouldn't be testing the TV's Ethernet connection. It would just be testing the Apple TV's Ethernet connection, which, by the way, the Apple TV was 100 megabits for years and years, right? I hope it's still not, and I'm not entirely sure.
No, I think the modern ones are. Like, I think once it went to 4K, I believe that's when they upped it.
Yep, I believe that's.
Although I'm not sure there's any content that that I watch on my Apple TV that exceeds 100 megabits anyway. But yeah, so I have to download it from the Sony App Store. So go to the Sony App Store and search for speed test, and there's like just like the usual suspects lineup of sketchy looking applications that all claim to be speed tests. None of them are recognizable brands of any kind of thing. They all just look like generic speed tests. You're like, which one of these is least likely to destroy my television? So I downloaded a couple of them. One of them didn't work at all. One of them looks a little bit janky, but one of them did actually run a speed test. And on my Wi-Fi, from the position of all my routers and everything, I was getting 70, 80 gigabits. Not gigabits, megabits, 70, 80 megabits per second, which is less than the Ethernet. So I plugged the Ethernet bit in and tried that, and sure enough, it gets like 99, 100 megabits, just like you would expect. So my Wi-Fi in my position of my television, where all my routers are in my house, is not faster than 100 megabits. So what am I supposed to do? I want faster than 100 megabits into this television because, I don't know, I want to watch Bravia Core. I want to see the fancy stuff. Granted, I have a Blu-ray player for all that too, but I have these 10 free movie credits and I'd like to see the full quality. I asked this to Merlin last night on a Rectif's recording, which will come out sometime in the future, but I'll ask you two, what should I do?
Can you DFU restore your TV?
Well, what would that be? Like, it's 100 megabit Ethernet port. That's never getting any faster, right? And my Wi-Fi is not fast enough given my router location. So I want to get more than 100 megabits of data into my television.
Could you put another Eero connected via Ethernet, like directly next to the TV?
I'm trying to think, is there any way to otherwise pipe in Ethernet? Like, I assume it, like, would a USB 3 Ethernet adapter work? Probably not, but
that's the thing I pursued. All right. So there are, if you search, you will find plenty of USB-A to Ethernet adapters that claim gigabit Ethernet speeds. This television has a USB-A ports on it. Most modern televisions do. And from other Sony people out there who have Sony televisions, older Sony televisions, they said, yeah, I got a USB to Ethernet adapter and it let me get faster speeds, right? Unfortunately, since this television is so new, I had trouble finding people who had this television and had done that successfully. So people like, oh, I've got an A80J or an A90J and I did this and that worked. And I was like, well, I don't know. Things change. So the OS version is different. This is a brand new TV. I'm not sure what will work. If you look at the USB to Ethernet adapters that you will see for sale, at Amazon or whatever, there's tons of them, but there's nothing to really distinguish them other than the price and some branding. They all kind of look the same. But this is not a computer, right? I don't know. I can't install drivers, as far as I know, to make this adapter work. So it's either going to work or it's not going to work. So I ordered one, and I picked a name brand. I ordered the Anchor one. I'm like, I've heard of them. I have their power adapters or whatever. This seems like a reasonable quality product. Let me try it. TV didn't see it at all. You plug it in, nothing happens. It's just totally invisible to the television. There's no way to make it detected, as far as I can tell. Just didn't work at all. In the time that it took to ship that, I had been doing more Google searching. I found someone with an actual A95K, and they said, I use this specific adapter, and it worked. So I just bought the exact one that they had. We'll put a link in the show notes. It isn't one of those Amazon products with a giant name that I'm not going to read right now, but it's from Cable Matters. It looks exactly the same as the Anchor one, but like a different color. And this one works. Apparently, the theory is that you have to have the RTL 8153 chipset inside the adapter, and that the Google TV OS will recognize. And yes, you plug it in, it recognizes it works. I did a speed test. I wasn't getting a gigabit, but I was peaking around 700 or 800 megabits. So pretty good. And that's much more convenient than getting a whole other Eero thing and putting the Wi-Fi 2 inches away. And especially since all my top end Eero 6 Pro or whatever things are in use in the house. So I would have to either buy another fancy one to get the maximum Wi-Fi speed or use one of my older, lesser ones that can't even do the most modern Wi-Fi standards. And I also don't even know what Wi-Fi standards the television supports. I don't even know what the most modern one is. What is the top end one now? It's not AC
I
anymore.
don't even know.
6.
Yeah, they just went to numbers. Anyway, or 6E, I don't know. Anyway, the USB to Ethernet adapter, it's a little bit weird and janky, and you might not think of it, but it worked. And so now that's how my television is connected.
even though that's a stupid thing, you shouldn't even have to do that. I'm glad that was the answer, because the Wi-Fi right next to it thing just kind of seemed dirty. It's like when you wanted to like record stuff on a cassette when you were younger before you knew anything and had anything, and it's like, all right, I can hold my boombox up to the speaker of another radio and hit record, and maybe it'll work. And it does kind of work, but not well, and it seems wrong, and it's not the right way to do it. Like, so I'm glad you found like the correct way among the limited options that were available to you.
Well, honestly, it's pretty shameful. If Sony's going to have this service and the selling point is we have super high quality movies, like put a gigabit Ethernet port in your TV. It's mostly has to do with, I think, the fact that even though the panel on the A95K is this fancy new Samsung Quantum Dot OLED thing, the guts of the TV are not substantially different in terms of like the decoding hardware and everything than they were on like last year's model of Sony television. So that's part of why the limit has the limitations in gaming and stuff that the LG one doesn't, because the LG is just ahead of them on their sort of in the computer that is inside the television. So, that's a shame, but seriously, for a television of this price, there's no reason it should have a 100 megabit Ethernet port, or at least it should warn you about it. Say, don't use this, it's bad. The fact that the USB port to the rescue, geez, what a world.
We are sponsored this week by the Stack Overflow podcast. For more than a dozen years, the Stack Overflow podcast has been exploring what it means to be a developer and how the art and practice of software programming is changing our world. I have personally listened to the Stack Overflow podcast for most of that time, I think. This was one of the first podcasts I ever listened to on a regular basis. Really, they've been doing it for more than 12 years. I remember listening to it on my way back when I was working in the city, working on Tumblr every day in like 2007, 2008 kind of time frame. I was listening to the Stack Overflow podcast. They were talking about building Stack Overflow itself. And you can imagine, what Stack Overflow is to the developer community. It's this massive, important resource now. The people who built that and the culture and the company that they created over time, they're now doing all sorts of great stuff, including the Stack Overflow podcast. From Rails to React, from Java to Node, they host important conversations and fascinating guests that will help you understand how technology is made and where it's headed. It's now hosted by Ben Popper, Matt Kiernander, Cassidy Williams, and Ciora Ford. So the Stack Overflow podcast is your home for all things code. They offer new episodes twice a week, and of course, it's available in every podcast app. Wherever you get your podcast, you can find the Stack Overflow podcast. So check it out. I love Stack Overflow, and I love the company they built, and I love the product they built, and the Stack Overflow podcast is exactly as good as you'd think it would be from Stack Overflow itself. So see for yourself, once again, the Stack Overflow podcast available wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much to the Stack Overflow podcast for being in my ears for so many years and for sponsoring our show.
So in terms of the TiVo remote codes, I was trying to get my TiVo remote to control the power and the volume and everything on my television. And first the codes weren't working, then I swapped the batteries, and then the codes were kind of working, but it was janky, especially for like volume up and down. You'd hit the volume up button and nothing would happen. You'd hit it again, and it would go up 3 notches. It was not quite working right. So I actually did contact TiVo support, which apparently still exists, and said, hey, I've got this new TV. I tried entering remote codes. None of them quite work the way I want them to. What should I do? And they replied and pointed me to the article that I had already seen that many other people pointed me to. It was like, oh, here's how you can make the remote scan through all the codes with this, enter in 0999 and it will just go through all the codes, and press the channel up button every 2 seconds to keep going through the codes. First of all, that article that tells you to do that, like I understand what it's saying, like, oh, there's 10,000 codes and you're not going to type them all in yourself, so just let the remote do it for you. It never said what happens, what should happen. All it said is every 2 seconds, allow at least 2 seconds between presses and then press channel up. First of all, why am I doing that? Why doesn't it just go through all the codes? And second of all, what is supposed to happen during this process? Like when it finds the code, will it stop when it finds the code? How does it know when it finds the code? Should I be watching for something that happens? Should I be watching for the tower to turn off? And then I should hit a button to say, hey, you found it. There's no, in the article, doesn't tell you what you should do. So either this doesn't work at all, or I don't understand what I'm supposed to do. Because I tried it like 3 times and nothing happens. The television just sits there showing whatever it's showing. The remote sits there and nothing ever happens. So I don't understand it at all. But anyway, they said that, and that wasn't helpful. And they said, if you have any other problems, contact Sony. So they passed the buck. So I don't know what I'm going to do, because contacting Sony seems like it will not be fruitful. At least TiVo replied and had, a suggestion, but not a great support experience. Because I'd feel like in the good old days of TiVo, it would be like it's their job to know all, like they put these codes in the UI. It's part of the TiVo experience. It's like, don't worry, we'll figure this out for you. Here, if you have a Sony television, here are the codes. We figured them all out. And when there's a new code, we put the new code in the UI, and this is a brand new TV. And you would think, oh, we're going to be on top of this new TV. We'll have the new codes for it, whatever. But nope, they just said, if it still doesn't work, this is all we know. If it still doesn't work, contact Sony.
So I'm sorry, you said that you mash on the channel up button repeatedly, which, okay, so far so good. Channel up is an interesting choice, but you said there's no way to indicate that it has worked, because my expectation is, like, I've done this with remotes before. In fact, we'll talk about that later. And what you would typically do is do like power or volume or something like that, something that's generic across any sort of input. And then when you've hit the right one, when the volume changes or the TV turns off or what have you, then you hit a different button on the remote to say to the remote, that last one, that was the one, save it. And you're saying that there's no option for that in the TiVo?
I mean, all I'm saying is the support document didn't say that. It just said, enter this code, and then allowing at least 2 seconds between presses, keep pressing the channel up button, and it will try all sorts of codes, right? The way you do it normally is you hold down some buttons for 5 seconds, you enter a 4-digit code, and then you try the power button. Like entering the 4-digit code says, I'm going to be this kind of universal remote. Use this universal remote code, right? So if you try the power button and it works, you're done, because you don't have to enter any more codes. Like that configuration process of hold down the button so the light turns on and type in the 4-digit code, that's it. You're done. There's no other step. But the whole point of this other thing is it's going to cycle through the codes.
Yeah.
And it didn't say like, oh, when the television turns off, the remote will just magically know and it will stop cycling. Or when the television turns off, quick hit this button to tell the remote, hey, you found it. It didn't say that in the support article. So I don't understand if the support article says, hold down the buttons that enter 0999, and then every 2 seconds hit channel up, and then just live there for the rest of your life hitting channel up every 2 seconds. I have no idea.
Real-time follow-up. RIP Mac, I guess Rip Mac, says in the chat, at the very bottom, it says, quote, if you press channel up and your TV turns off, press enter to select the code. Press the TV power button to test the code. If your TV turns on, you have successfully programmed the remote.
This is interesting, because this is a different document than the one I had. Because the one I was pointed to was at a different URL, and it had the 0999 code, not the 199. I guess the 199 one's for AV stereo receivers, but yeah, all right. So, I mean, I can try that next time, see if it'll go through all the codes, but I do wonder if it's actually using all 1,000 of them. The other thing is, how many codes is it going through, and how long am I going to be sitting there hitting channel up? Because I know a couple of them will at least work for the power button and kind of work for the volume.
It seems to me like it's just time to abandon that piece of crap TiVo. Am I right?
No, still pretty good. Except for not 4K, obviously.
There's got to be something that would serve these purposes without actually being a TiVo. And somebody wrote in to scold me justifiably, and I don't have your name in front of me, I'm sorry, but to say, Channels, which sponsored us once in the past, and one of the co-founders is a personal friend of mine, but Channels does darn near everything that TiVo does, and arguably does it better. And so, now I'm not a TiVo person, I've never been a TiVo person, so maybe I'm overselling here, but it is worth thinking about. Maybe it is time to get rid of the TiVo, John.
Yeah, lots of people promoted the Channels UI, especially as a way to not have to use the YouTube TV UI, which other YouTube TV users also complained about, like the guide thing only going one item at a time. They said, well, you don't have to worry about that, because if you use Channels, you don't have to use their UI. You can just use the Channels UI, which is really nice. Lots of raves for that. Problem with me for Channels, at least right now, is the product that they have, like the hardware product that they have that accepts cable cards, they don't manufacture anymore and haven't manufactured it a long time. On their website, they say, oh, just go on eBay and get it. And that's not
No, that's not
what
true.
I'm looking for.
I'm almost sure I'm not going to search for it while we're live, but I went down this road just a couple of months ago to see if I could get the HD home run that takes a cable card, and I am pretty sure Amazon had some in stock at the time.
Well, the getchannels.com website links to eBay now. So but the whole point is it's not a product they make anymore. The website, they say we don't make that anymore. So I'm looking at
it right now. It's Silicon Dust HD Home Run Prime Cable TV 3 tuner. It takes a cable card, $150 on Amazon. Available right now.
Right, but they don't make it anymore. Like, it's a dead product.
It doesn't, and TiVo isn't? Like, first of all,
no,
TiVo
they still
is
make
too.
TiVos. You can buy one right now.
Oh, well, first of all, I don't understand why you think it's a dead product. If I'm looking at it,
I know, but you can't make it. They don't make it anymore.
I don't think that's true, John. I really honestly, I understand what Channel says. I'm not arguing that. But
this model is no longer manufactured. You can still find them on eBay, though. That's what it says on the getchannels.com website.
Yes, but why wouldn't you trust Silicon Dust? Like, I'm pretty sure.
But why don't they make it anymore? Why is there no replacement
I'm
for
saying
it?
I think they do. I'm pretty sure they
It says on their website they don't.
No, but you're getting confused. Channels doesn't make the hardware. Channels is just talking about Silicon Dust's hardware. Channels is software only. So they're not the arbiter of what Silicon Dust is or is not doing. And so if you go to Silicon Dust's website, it's so busted and ancient. It says that it's actually in development, but it's available on Amazon right now. You can buy it right now. I'm tempted to send it to you right now, but I'm too cheap. So it is available. I don't think it's a dead product. I really don't.
Is it the same product they're talking about? Because then what?
Yes.
Well,
I'm pretty sure.
The HD Home Run Prime.
Yes, that's what's on. Let me put the link in the show notes here.
Why does Get Channel say this model is no longer manufactured?
I understand what you're saying. I get it. I really do. I can't put an affiliate link in. That's annoying. Anyway, I just sent you the link.
Amazon has plenty of things that aren't manufactured anymore. But anyway, I mean, the real problem with the Get Channels thing, from my perspective, aside from the sketchiness of getting something that works with cable card, and by the way, it only has 3 tuners instead of 6, which is not great.
How often do you need to record more than 3 things at once?
A surprising amount of time, because I've had 6 tuners for many, many years, and you just get used to not having to worry about it.
How do you have time to watch all of this
Yes,
TV?
seriously.
It's just sometimes it's not that there's so much TV, it's just like television. There's a popular times for shows to be on.
And you watch so you're recording like ABC, CBS, Fox, and I can't even NBC.
Well, not network TV. Come on, that's madness. But
Well, I'm just saying.
On cable shows, there are popular times where there's multiple things on, and then you might want to be watching something else. I don't think I need 6, but 3 is pushing, because I think I had a 3-tuner TiVo, and sometimes you would bump into limits.
Then get 2 of them.
Yeah, I mean, it starts to add up. Anyway, the other thing about so that thing with the cable cards is the cable card box thing doesn't actually record anything. It is just to ferry the signal. So then you need to run the channel software on some device. And to its credit, the channel thing runs on tons of things. It runs on Synology. You can run it on a PC. I think you can run it on a bunch of Apple devices. But that means that you need to have a hard drive that you're going to dedicate to this, or at least have enough hard drive space to store stuff, which is great. You can have as much space as you want, but bad in that now you have to buy and build this thing. So I did look. I'm some kind
John, I have it running on a Mac Mini, the refurb Mac Mini that I just bought like a month ago. And you know where it saves all of its stuff? To the Synology. Because why wouldn't you?
Yeah, no, you can run. Yeah, I think you can run it on the Synology. You don't even need a Mac Mini.
Potentially, but I don't trust that. But
maybe when my TiVo finally dies, I will probably look into this. I mean, what I really want to do is not have the cable card either, which is kind of the direction they're going. You can do the whatever TV Anywhere thing where it uses the API to get the stuff, but it still kind of seems like on the fringes, even more so than TiVo, because TiVo, for all its wonkiness, has a very established tech stack. There's nothing in the tech stack that is imminently going to be destroyed, other than cable card being essentially discontinued, which is a bummer. But aside from that, no sort of streaming service is angry that TiVo is recording channels and stuff like that. Whereas I can imagine the various streaming services, even the ones that do currently support whatever API they're using to like scrape video from the web, might decide that it's not in their best interest to support that anymore. Already, some of them don't support it. So it just seems like more moving parts and more stuff to deal with. Now, that said, I'm kind of interested in just using it just to see the interface and just connecting it to streaming services, because you don't have to use cable card or do any cable. You can just point it, like sign in with your streaming service credentials, or also sign in with like your cable credentials, and it will try to pull them from the web too, because you don't need to use a cable card to use this. So I'm going to look into that to see how that goes, because if I can get YouTube TV-ish 4K content for regular shows through, without cable card, which is what I want, because that's kind of also a dead end, I may be interested in that. But really, I just want to see what the UI looks like.
So, real-time follow-up from John Maddox, who is the aforementioned co-founder of Channels. I said, is this still being manufactured? Linking him what I did on Amazon. And he said they found more of the chips last year. They've been selling it again for a year.
There was a box in the back that had some more chips in it.
So he said, having Fios, which you do, John, you're silly for not getting one for Channels. It's hands down the best setup. And he said that, they weren't for sale for a while. And I told him you were very, very worked up about the website. And he said he would change it for you tonight. So by the time you look at this, listener, if you look in the show notes, you may not see what John saw, but it will be updated soon. Anyway, John Maddox, the co-founder, said it's not a dead product, it's not any more dead than cable card is as a a whole. So there you go.
So the co-founder of the company says that you should get this product. Got it.
No. John, again, he doesn't care whether he doesn't get a cut from HD Home Run. It's a different entire company.
I get it. That's also kind of part of
it doesn't sound like you get it though, because Channels is just software.
I was reading their website that said it was no longer manufactured, and that made and they also didn't have any information about another cable card model, and that was like, okay, well, fine, this one isn't manufactured, but I'll just buy the new one, right? And they didn't have a link to that either, so that makes me think. I mean, I know what you're saying. Like I said, cable card itself is, not really going to be a going concern for much longer, and it kind of isn't anymore either. But it's what I'm currently using, and TiVo support it. And so and you can buy a brand new TiVo today that supports it, a model that is still manufactured. So TiVo still got that one up there.
I mean, I hear you, and as much as I love poking fun at you for using this ancient-ass piece of technology, I really genuinely think that you would probably be better served by using Channels and one of these boxes.
If you want to get Channel, what I would suggest to Channels is, like, for someone like me who's like a Mac person, like, suggest a build. Like, I would build myself a little PC, or suggest, like, what is the best experience? Should I use my Synology, or is mine too old and weak? Should I use a Mac Mini like you? That seems pretty expensive way to do this, right? I mean, you have that press. If there was like a little, here's, if you want to build yourself a PC that works great with this setup, here's a cheap way to do it. Because I don't want to go through the research building my own PC that does all this stuff, and I'm not quite ready to buy a new Synology yet. I don't want to spend $1,000+ on a Mac Mini to do it. Like, so faced with that kind of situation where, it's, they don't even make it. It's a different company. It's all different people doing the things they want. But if I just want to go in and say, I don't want to deal with any of this, I just want something that's as easy as TiVo or as close as I can get, they're still a little far from that in terms of the setup. Obviously, if that's not what you want, if you want the ability to customize it, you can build it the way you want, you can put the storage that you want, then Channels is great. And apparently everybody loves the UI, which is the main reason I'm looking into it. But if you're just looking for that TiVo type experience, now that TiVo is slowly fading away, no one is there to take its place.
I hear what you're saying, but consider that I use a Mac Mini because I don't want to deal with supporting anything else.
And you have a Mac Mini. Like, if I had one, I would use it.
Right.
But I don't.
But if I wasn't doing it on this, I believe they have a build for Raspberry Pis, and of course, if I'm not going to solve a problem with the Synology, then I'll solve it with the Raspberry Pi. But I genuinely think you're making this out to be much harder than it really is. I understand what you're saying. I really honestly do. But if you got one of these tuner things, these HD Home Runs, which again, completely and utterly different company than Channels, if you got one of these and put your cable card that's currently in the TiVo into this and hooked it up to any computer in the house, you have so many computers in that house. I mean, or any computer that's running 24/7 or really running any time that you would
hook it up. I would have to be in the basement. This stuff, that type of thing can't be in the upstairs with the people.
What thing? Which
anything that is not any computer that's, unless it's completely silent, any other computer doesn't stay up.
Well, is Tina's iMac on 24/7?
This is not an iMac. She has a Mac Studio, and it's under the desk, and it's on 24/7, and it's silent.
So run the channel software on the Mac Studio. You've already got your problem solved.
No, I'm not going to do that.
Why?
Because you're restarting the computer while someone's watching TV. Right? No,
how often do you restart the computer?
I don't know what she does on her computer. It's her computer, but she does not want, and I don't want the state of her computer to affect people watching television. It's unacceptable entanglement.
You are being incredibly difficult.
I mean, I run the Plex server on her thing, but a Plex, I don't have...
Oh my God, John! Why is that okay?
Because
why is it different?
I don't have an SLA on my Plex server, and I'm the only person who knows how to use Plex, so it's not like it has anyone else's stuff on it.
Smokes, my dude. Oh... Am I
I also run the Plex server in the Synology too. So if the Plex server I have so many Plex servers in my house. If that Plex server is down, you can go to the one on. I have it on two Synologies, so you can go to either one.
Oh my God.
And yes, they all point to the same data. So you can go to any of the.
Why? I don't even have two Plex servers running in this house, and I'm obsessed with Plex.
You should. It's handy. I have everything being mirrored, right? So I have her Plex server points to the Synology with just an SMB mount of the Synology, right?
Yeah, that's the way mine works.
And then the Synology obviously runs Plex with its local storage. And then I have a second Synology that I clone the first Synology to, and that runs its own copy of Plex on the clone of the data, which is kept in sync with that synchronization service that we couldn't remember the name of that other time.
Well, all I'm saying is this doesn't have to be as difficult as you're making it out to be. I understand how you got to where you are, but you are making this way harder than it needs to be.
Let's see. What I really just want is a 4K TiVo. Do you have the co-founder of TiVo on the phone with you? Oh, no, they're long gone.
No, but I can tell you this. I don't know if actually Channels does do 4K, but I bet you if anything could feed it 4K, I would be surprised if it didn't accept it and eat it.
I think to get 4K, it would. I mean, I don't know, but I don't think cable car can even handle that. I think it would have to be the streaming service thing, because Get Channels can just pull stuff from your streaming service and any of the various streaming services. That's how it works with YouTube TV and stuff like that.
Yes, so although I think that's 720, which is not Channels' fault. I think that's what the streaming service gives you via TV everywhere, but I could be wrong about that. I don't know. All I'm saying is the software is super easy to install. Migrating it is hilarious. Like when I migrated from the old Mac Mini to the new Mac Mini, doing the Plex migration was not a nightmare, but was not fun. And doing the Channels migration was basically install the Channel software and then point it at the right folder, and then magic happens. And it's as though it was on that machine forever. So it really is really, and again, John, the other John, is a friend of mine. I'm a little bit biased, but I went kicking and screaming into using Channels. He kept beating me up about it, like, why are you using Plex? Why are you using Plex? Use this, use this. And I don't think Channels is a reasonable replacement for Plex, although you could do that. But I will say, as a DVR, Channels really is fantastic. Plus, you can set it up to do fun things like make a virtual channel that just plays Letterkenny 24/7, which I have done, or whatever your particular vice may be. So genuinely, I mean, they are a former sponsor. The guy is a friend of mine, so take all this with as much salt as you desire. But hand to God, it really is great software, and it's worth trying out.
Yeah, I will try as much of it as I can without like changing any hardware setups, and just to see if I like the UI or whatever, and then I'll see where I can go over there. Kind of like I did with YouTube TV. I knew when I got the new setup I was going to try it. I stumbled on the UI.
I would definitely give it a roll.
The final TV thing, the mystery of the box. How does that box work? The top and the bottom halves don't seem to stay together, and yet somehow it got into my house. The answer was that apparently I blacked out when the TV was delivered, because when it was delivered to my house, it had two of those thin plastic mesh straps that come on packages wrapped around the thing. So I'll put a tweet in the show notes so you can see exactly what it looks like. And I cut those off, and that's what was holding the top to the bottom, but I totally forgot that I had cut those off.
Oh, whoops. Neat.
You can't, they're not like, you have to cut them off to open the box.
Are you able to properly disconnect those and throw them away without cutting your hand? Because I'm not.
Yeah, you just gotta be careful.
Literally every time I operate those plastic strap things, I'm like, all right, careful, don't get a cut. Like it's like
easy,
it's like a paper cut.
Easy.
Are you sliding it through your hands or something?
Yeah, somehow I do that, and I always cut my finger. Like it's like a big paper cut. It's terrible. It's like the worst. And I have never operated those things and successfully gotten them from the box to the trash can all the way without getting a cut.
Yeah, those things are a nightmare. All right, anything else about your TV? Or are you solid?
I think that's it for now. Like,
are you enjoying it?
Yeah, we watch some stuff on it. I mean, having a fancy TV. Yeah, I've been podcasting a lot, but so other people have been watching it. But having a fancy TV really, now it was easier before when I could be like, oh, this show is in 1080. Oh, this is in HDR. Like all the things that I never noticed or cared about before. Now there's this hierarchy of like, you're more excited to watch shows that take advantage of the features of your new TV and less excited to do ones that, because honestly, like a 1080 SDR show, it looks better than it did on my old TV, but not wow you better, because it's 1080 and it's SDR and it's being upscaled, and so.
Yeah, I hear you.
We are sponsored this week by Trade Coffee. People know I'm a coffee nerd, and they often ask me, hey, what's the best coffee? What kind of coffee should I get? And I always tell them, get freshly roasted beans. That matters more than anything else. Get them freshly roasted. Trade is a great way to get fresh roasted beans delivered to you however often you need it, and from 60 of the country's best craft roasters. They keep over 450 different kinds of coffee live and ready to ship in their system every single day, because they know that there's no one perfect coffee for everyone, but there might be a perfect coffee for you, and Trade's human-powered algorithm will find it. They are so confident they will match you with the coffee that you love the very first time, that if they don't, they'll take your feedback and an actual coffee expert will work with you to send you a brand new bag for free. This is a great service to try a bunch of coffee. You tell them what you like. You tell them things like, I like maybe a medium or a light roast or whatever it is. You tell them how you're brewing it, what kind of brewer you're using, whether you need it to be ground by them or whether you're going to grind it yourself, certain other flavors you might like or dislike. And they have this system that matches you to exactly what is going to be best for you. And it gives you a nice variety, too. You don't get the same thing every week. You get something that fits your profile every week. And they even ask you, like, how much do you want to be surprised? Like, basically, how much variability do you want? It's a great service at Trade. They have an amazing selection, and the variety you get from them is incredible. Right now, Trade is offering new subscribers a total of $30 off your first order, plus free shipping when you go to drinktrade.com/ATP. That's more than 40 cups of coffee for free. Get started by taking their quiz at drinktrade.com/ATP and let Trade find you a coffee you'll love. That's drinktrade.com/ATP for $30 off. Thank you so much to Trade for sponsoring our show. The two of you went on vacation recently, and I was curious to hear your respective tech experiences. Every year when John does this trip, we get a camera report of how the camera situation has changed and evolved and how it performed. And Casey, when you take your vacation, usually I know you take good drone photos, and you probably connected at least 4 or 5 Apple TVs to a hotel or rental TV at some point through your various HDMI cables that you keep in your travel pack. So I'm wondering what kind of tech experiences do you have in your vacations?
I mean, let me start because I don't think I have that much, to be honest with you. The big to-do with regard to my travel a couple of weeks back was the aforementioned issues with HomeKit and the Apple TV, and the Apple TV being convinced that my home was actually now in Cape Charles rather than in Richmond, which was super fun. But other than that, not that much was that different. Having my desktop computer come with me was kind of neat because I only have a laptop now, and that
desktop
is my
laptop
only computer. Yep. So that was kind of neat. I kind of like that. It was nice to be able to process photos as much as I do with my cockamamie setup. And then because I was, connected to my VPN at home, I could copy and upload all of those photos to the Synology as though I was at home from the beach. So I didn't have to do several hours of going through all of them when I got home. I just did a little bit each day with the pictures I had taken and then just uploaded them just like I always do. Granted, it was a little bit slower from the beach because they were on a cable connection with not a particularly strong upload side connection, but nevertheless.
You couldn't find a really fast bench there?
Yeah, right. Exactly. No, unfortunately not. But nevertheless, it's nice having your desktop with you, which I enjoy. And then I wrote a blog post about this like a week ago, and I'll put this in the show notes, but I have, as Marco mentioned, a Go Pack. And what I mean by that is I have it's actually a Harry's, former sponsor Harry's Shaving. I have a Harry's toiletry kit that just so happens to be like a perfect size to carry all of my travel cables and things and whatnots. And so it used to be that I had just an obscene amount of cables in there. And in short, what I did was I had one of those like plug it into the wall boxes, and then it had 5 USB-A connections on it. And so I would typically use 4 of them at the very least. I would use one for Aaron's phone, one for Aaron's watch, one for my phone, one for my watch. And then I would have some USB-A extension cables so that the box would be on my side of the bed, but I could, put a couple extensions and then a lightning cable on the end of those extensions so I could get the, connection all the way to Erin's side of the bed so she can put her phone down when she's ready rather than having to hand it to me for me to plug in. And it was just cables upon cables upon cables upon cables, and it was annoying. And what I ended up doing, as we spoke about, a few episodes ago, is getting these absurdly overpriced Mophie things. And that was super nice because all I had to do was plug in 2 of those. And then they have MagSafe, they have, the Apple Watch chargers on them. And that worked out real well. And I liked that. I did bring, the Apple TV and connected that via HDMI. I connected the Switch with the Switch dock via HDMI. And, and the other thing I did was Merlin turned me onto this idea. I brought with me, I don't remember the exact model name, but it's on the blog post that I'll link in the show notes. I brought my own universal remote, which I use now when I go to hotels or Airbnbs and whatnot, because people say, and maybe this is BS, but people say that remote controls are some of the most disgusting things in like a hotel room or what have you. And because of that, I've decided, yep, no thanks. I'll just bring my own, which is a little bit tinfoil hat. I'll be the first to tell you. But I did that, and that lets you program in what TV or whatever you're using based on a 4 or 5 digit code, and it also does the whole scanny dance like we were talking about earlier. But I brought that and used that on the TV there, and that worked great. And unlike last year, I didn't lose one of the Apple TV remotes in the house, so I didn't have to spend $70 when I got home. So
that's an
good.
Expensive loss.
Yeah, it was. I was really pissed, and this was right after it came out too. I was really, really pissed about it, but nonetheless, it worked out real well. The drone, I didn't use it quite as much. It was really windy when we were there, and windier than my little Mavic Mini or DJI Mini 2 could handle. But I did take a few shots, and I got to tell you, even though I don't use the drone that often, about a year and change on, maybe a year and a half on, I am still glad I bought it, and I still do enjoy using it. And I still think aerial photography is super fun, partially because it's just not something that a lot of people are capable of doing, in the sense that they haven't spent obscene amount of money on a drone. But I do enjoy it quite a bit. And I wish I had had the opportunity to get out more, but like I said, it was just the weather was super crummy in terms of wind. Like, it was fine in, human terms, but in for the drone, it was really bad. And that was unfortunate, but I think that was mostly it. The only problem I had was when we're driving up, I like to use my GoPro as kind of a poor man's dash cam. And what I'll do is I'll put the GoPro pointed out the front of Aaron's car, and I'll put it on time-lapse mode, so it takes a picture, a still every second. And my theory is it's better than nothing if, God forbid, we get in some sort of accident. I'll have some sort of documentation of what happened, right? And the problem with that, though, is that on a 2.5-hour trip, which in this case ended up being 3.5 hours because of traffic, the GoPro will deplete its battery during the span of that time. And so I typically use a battery pack that I keep in my laptop bag, which is also mentioned in this blog post. I'll connect that to the GoPro, and it'll keep the GoPro charged fine. But in this case, I thought to myself, well, I wonder if I could use my travel computer charger, which is a very unremarkable, what is it, GAN, I don't remember, it's something nitride or
gallium nitride,
something like that. Yeah. So basically, it's a physically small charger, and I thought, man, I wonder if I could use that to plug in. So it's an AC adapter, and I wonder if I could plug in the GoPro in my iPad, which I was using for most of the travel or most of the trip, or maybe even my computer if I felt it. Plug both of those into the AC adapter, and then we have a very, very old inverter. So this is a thing you plug it into the cigarette lighter, and it has an AC outlet on the other end. And I thought, well, I wonder if I could plug this in and power the GoPro off of the car rather than this battery pack, and then plug in my iPad as well, which would be kind of nice, because my iPad now, since my switch to Verizon, it has cellular service. And I got to tell you, Marco, have you known how wonderful it is to have cellular service on a device other than your phone? Imagine, Marco, how freaking great it would be to have that on your desktop laptop.
Oh, wait, are you talking about Verizon's ultra-fast worldwide 5G network?
Yeah, that's exactly right. But seriously, I really wish I had the option for that on a computer, because I know it would be obscenely expensive, and I would grumble about it for months, but I would be so happy to have it.
It wouldn't have to be. It's only $129 premium on the iPad.
Yeah, but they would charge $250 on a Mac.
Well, of course they would, but it doesn't have to be. I feel like we do a slight disservice whenever we make it seem like this is some huge reach to add cellular to a Mac. It's not. It's been done on PCs forever, and you can do it on Macs with those USB dongle modem things that they've had forever. I don't. Do those still exist? I used to use those back in the day. I don't know if they.
I don't even know.
They probably do, but anyway, it's not like this is a hard thing to add cellular to laptops. It can be done, and yeah, there's a couple of minor things they have to do with Mac OS to make it aware of hey, maybe don't download the latest episode of Mad Men from iTunes over cellular and burn up your whole data usage.
Not that you've ever done that.
No, definitely not. But they already have almost all of that infrastructure in place in the recent URL session and URL connection APIs. There's all that stuff is already there for detecting metered connections and limited connections and stuff like that. So anyway, it's not that much work to add cellular to the laptops. Just Like, what are we waiting for? Just do it. It's fine.
Yes, please. But anyway, so I wanted to power all this via my inverter, and the inverter, we haven't used that in years. Like, it still works, but I think the last thing that was plugged into it was a breast pump when Aaron was breastfeeding. So like it hasn't been used in a while. But nevertheless, I tried plugging in this, like, I don't know, 80, 90 watt GAN charger, and the inverter was like, nope, that's way too much. And so none of this was a problem, but I have since purchased, and I'll put a link in the show notes, a pure sine wave inverter, which is very cool. And that has 2 AC outlets on it, and supposedly is up to 300 watts. And it actually has a 60 watt USB-C PD port on it in and of itself. So I may not even need to plug in my GAN charger if I'm only plugging in one device. But anyway, I'm going to try that out and next time we're on a longer trip and see if that works, because that would be kind of cool. But I don't know. For the most part, it was basically same old stuff. But I tell you, when you do have your travel setup locked in and squared away, which I feel like I do pretty well now, it is super nice. And again, I preach the gospel of the Go Pack. Just have a package or packet or a bag or what have you that has cables that you never, ever use for anything else. You never, ever use for anything else. One more time, you never use it for anything else. And then, at a moment's notice, all you have to do is grab that bag. You don't have to worry about, I got to undo the thing by the bed, or, I got to do this, I got to do that. No, you just grab the bag. You grab the bag and you're set. I cannot preach this gospel loudly enough.
I too do that. Like I have, so first of all, like I used to be a little bit more of a backpack nerd, and I had 3 or 4 different bags. I would watch Chase Reeves reviews on YouTube and get all the cool bags he recommended, and I loved how cool the different ones were. And I realized over time that it was kind of a pain in the butt to have a bunch of different bags, to have to like keep stuff shuffled between, or never quite have the stuff you think you have, or have to maintain duplicate copies of everything. So I went down to just having one backpack. And that's the backpack I bring to everything. And in that backpack is what you're talking about, like a complete set of everything: cables, chargers, adapters, and those things are only used outside of my home. They are never used in the home. They are never taken out of the backpack, because then they will never go back into the backpack. And then when I'm out somewhere, I won't have them. And so I do the same thing, and it is so worth it.
And it's expensive. Like a lot of these things, like Apple dongles, are super expensive. These freaking $150 Mophie things that I do love, but obviously that's silly expensive. But I do genuinely think, as frugal as I am, spending the money on having a complete Go Pack that is redundant for things that you would use in the house, I can't speak it highly enough.
I mean, and the good thing is too, like over time, we need fewer of these things. And this is, by the way, this is part of the reason why I push so hard on getting rid of Lightning, because if we get rid of Lightning, I need even fewer of these things. But like now that everything is USB-C everywhere, we have USB-C multi-port chargers, as you mentioned. Like the new generation of GAN chargers is even smaller and can fit even more ports and even more wattage. Like so, we have this amazing abundance of great charging equipment and technology now. And it's really just kind of waiting for Apple to make it simpler. Like, the thorns on my side are Lightning and the Apple Watch. Like those things needing their own special charging things are annoying. But otherwise, like so many things that we used to need in the past, we don't need. And with this new generation of laptops, you don't even need most of the dongles anymore. Like you need a way to get USB-A sometimes. But that's about it. Like, I have my SD card now built in. HDMI is built in if I ever need it, although I probably won't. But, you do, other people use it. So a lot of that stuff went away now with this new generation. So, hopefully we'll keep moving this direction and get more and more standardized, more USB-C stuff, fewer custom chargers from Apple, and fewer reasons to carry around like the mini USB adapters for other crap.
Yep. John, how was your trip?
I'm going to comment on the travel bag thing first, because you guys talk about this a lot and Merlin talks about it a lot. And, but if it's a thing that makes you feel good to have, which obviously it does for both of you, then fine. But I would say, practically speaking, I don't think either one of you travels enough. This is a requirement in your life.
No, I agree.
You're not a spy that the CIA is going to call you and tell your identity is burned and you have to leave at a moment's notice. And you want to make sure you have all the adapters. Like, it's just a fun thing that you're doing, either to keep Dave and dogs at bay, or just because it's a fun convenience that you can spend a little bit extra money for, and it gives Marco something to put in his backpacks. But I certainly don't
backpack
travel
singular.
Yeah, sorry.
Backpack monogamous now. I've given up my old ways.
I travel so little, and when I do travel, I bring the stuff that I need to bring with me. It's not a big deal. But, if this is a thing that you're into and you want to have a go bag, you can have a go bag. I do not have a go bag. When I go, I put things in a bag. It's a little bit different.
Boo.
Sorry. And it's cool. It's fun. I'm just saying, like, if you're listening to this because we preach the same gospel, like, oh, you really need backups or whatever. I'm going to say this is a different category of things. Like, back up your family photos, but if you don't have a go bag, you'll probably be fine. Unless you're like a frequent business travel, in which case you should definitely have this because you will forget stuff. But none of us are frequent business travelers.
By the way, I travel more than both of you.
I know you go back and forth. So but when you do that, you're not bringing your go bag because you've got stuff at both places.
No, I'm bringing my backpack every time. You know what's also in my backpack? The car key, the house key, like an inhaler.
Well, I mean, do you have to have a special go bag to keep your wallet and car keys in? No, everyone just puts them in, brings them with them when they go. And
no, but that, if I'm gonna take a boat across the bay first, like I want to make sure that
But you're not bringing make sure you have adapters to connect your iPad and your phone and your watch charger. Like that's not essential for you to bring with you because there's a watch charger and an iPad charger and all that stuff at both places you're going.
I know I can take the exact same bag with me, either whether I'm just going to Westchester or whether I'm flying across the country. Like I know I can take that same bag and have the things I need. And the things you're talking about are not like a massive amount of size or weight or cost. You're talking about like 3 cables, basically.
I just feel like you could also pack that bag when you need to go.
But why would you? Why wouldn't you? For someone who I think, and I am a very nervous traveler, but I think of the three of us, you are the worst. For someone who is such a nervous traveler, just cross this off the list.
But I never travel anywhere. Not traveling is the most relaxing.
Mm-hmm.
We are sponsored this week by Memberful. Monetize your passion with membership. Look, if you're a creator, diversified income away from just ads is really great to get. And selling memberships to your audience is a great way to do this. Memberful allows you to do this, and it's used by some of the biggest creators on the web. And Memberful includes everything you need to run a membership program. Things like custom branding, gift subscriptions, Apple Pay, free trials, support for hosting private podcasts, and tons more. And best of all, Memberful seamlessly integrates with the tools you already use. This is why so many people are into it. So, because you don't want to have to write your own whole custom integration or anything. With Memberful, they already support some of the biggest tools, some of the most popular stuff out there, so you probably don't have to write anything. And they do all the hard stuff for you. Trust me, I've written payment stuff like this before. You don't want to write it. It's a pain in the butt. Memberful takes care of all the hard stuff for you, and they have great features. Optimized checkout to get you more customers. Of course, Apple Pay support, member management, dashboards, analytics, so much built into Memberful. If you need any help, they have a world-class support team ready to help you get started, simplify your memberships, and grow your revenue because they are passionate about your success at Memberful, and they always give you access to real humans. And best of all, you always retain full control and ownership of your audience, your branding, and your membership. Payments even go directly to your own Stripe account. That is fantastic. I'm big on ownership, and Memberful is great for that. You brand everything yourself. You own your audience. Can't beat that. Get started for free with Memberful with no credit card required at memberful.com/ATP. Once again, visit memberful.com/ATP today. Thank you so much to Memberful for sponsoring our show.
So speaking of traveling, I've been going to Long Island every summer for many, many years now. We rent places down there. We had 2 steady places that we rented. One of them we outgrew, and the other one the people stopped renting it basically, which was kind of a bummer. So we've rented in many other places in between. And if you're listening to this and you have a rental house, please make sure that in this day and age, your internet stuff works. It amazes me how many places I've never been in a place with good internet, and I'm like, do people ever live in this house? In one case, I knew they did. This was someone's actual house where they lived. They just rented it out for the summer. But how do they tolerate not having good internet in their house, right? And maybe it's they make it bad when the summer renters come, and then they make it good again. And how would they make it bad and good? Well, there seems to be this thing with people.
Why would they make it bad and good?
Well, I'll explain it to you. There seems to be this thing that every place that I've ever rented, like they let you use their house. You're in there, you're using their house. If you ever had a rental house, there's usually some part of the house or some part is like locked up that has like the owner's stuff that you're not supposed to go into, right? That makes sense. Like, don't touch the good china. Like, this is where the stuff from our bedroom is. Don't go in there. That's fine. That all makes sense, right? But 100% of the time in all the rental houses I've ever been in, the internet router, like, internet connection stuff is one of those things that they lock up.
Oh, really? I don't think I've ever seen that.
Always.
No, I've always seen it like, shoved behind the TV.
Yeah.
In all the rental houses I've been, it is locked up somewhere. It's locked in a basement. It's locked in a cabinet. It's just all locked up. And you would think, okay, well, that's so like the renters don't screw it up, because non-techie people are going to come in and something's not going to work, and they're like, I can fix it, and they'll screw it up, and then they're going to call the owners and say, hey, the internet doesn't work, and then it's just a big hassle. So lock it up so they can't screw it up, right? That would be fine, except it's pre-screwed up almost all the time. And the second problem is where they lock it up is often someplace that doesn't acknowledge the fact that, hey, do you realize that's where Wi-Fi is coming from? You've put it in the basement in a locked room in the corner. You think I'm going to get that Wi-Fi in the living room on the other side of the house anymore? No, you buried the router. That's the source of your Wi-Fi. Oh, just put it like a repeater. No, the repeater doesn't help when it's on the other side of the house. It's like 100 feet and 3 floors from the actual source of the Wi-Fi. And I know this because what I always do when I go into these houses is I say, where the hell is this people's internet stuff? Like, what are they using? And let me find it. Like, let me set it free. Right. And it's always locked up. So this year, we went to a house, the same house we went to last year, and its internet is so bad, it might as well be useless. A lot of the time, it's just, you can't load any web pages. It's just down. And, is that because, like, the actual internet is down from their provider? I don't think so. Part of it might have to do with the fact where they lock up their stuff, right? The clue, if you search the house and you're like, where the hell is it locked up? Because there are sections of it that are closed off. Like, it must be in there, I guess. But no, based on signal strength, that doesn't seem like that's where it is. They use Eero, so you can find an Eero. So like, I found an Eero, but it's just it's one of the satellite things. It's not the thing. Like, there's no Ethernet cable going into it, right? So they're using Eero, and the Wi-Fi signal strength is good everywhere because Eero is good at blanking it with Wi-Fi. But where does the internet come from? And if you pick up that Eero and turn it over, you see the ominous word in Sharpie written on the bottom of this Eero, which is shed.
What?
So their internet stuff was in their backyard in a locked shed, far from the house. It's a wooden shed. It's locked up. It's got a padlock on it, and that's where their internet. Is cable buried under the ground? Is cable internet? How does the internet get to there? But either way, when it goes down and the light on the Eero turns red and you can't get anywhere, there's nothing you can do about it. And when it's up, it's just the speeds are awful. Like, I would do the thing, you're speaking of Casey, like reviewing photos on vacation. That's what I do. You take pictures during the day. I load them onto my laptop that I brought with me. I sort through them or whatever. Usually have a slideshow at night showing the day's photos to the family, right? But also the other function I'm doing is I load them onto the computer, and then I usually leave the computer like plugged in and on so it can shove them up the iCloud photo library, right? In this house, if you leave this thing open while you're asleep, it will upload like 3 photos. Like the upload speeds and the connection is so bad that it's pointless, right? So when we go there, this is the house where we're in, but the rest of my family's in another house that's like a couple blocks away. Their internet connection at least works well enough to upload. So what I would do is I would go over their house, plug my laptop in, shove it in a corner, and let it upload, because at least, it would progress over time. So that continues to be a frustration. People locking their internet stuff in obscure locations because, again, I get it. I understand they don't want people screwing with it, but it just plain doesn't work half the time. And then you get kids there, and they're all on their devices, so they're complaining the internet doesn't work. Luckily, they both have phones, so worst case scenario, you just drop back to 5G, which is mostly what they did. And now you just hope you don't burn through all your data because the kids just give up on Wi-Fi because it never works, and the cellular is faster anyway.
Was it the Verizon nationwide ultra?
On right. It wasn't ultra wideband like the bench though, so it was just at least web pages will load, and of course my daughter's always in Spotify, so that's all streaming all the time. So we are using a lot of bandwidth, but yeah, the Wi-Fi is just grim. And at the other house, the Wi-Fi is better, but still not good. I'm not sure where their router is locked up. I didn't go searching for it, but yeah, every house has bad Wi-Fi, and I don't know how people live like that.
I'm surprised because I live in a vacation town, and so almost every house here gets rented on a regular basis, in the summertime. And the clear standard here is that people usually make the Wi-Fi router easily accessible, like in the middle of the house, like by whatever the primary TV is in the living room. And the reason why, first of all, it's there because that's where they installed it, because that's where Verizon usually. This is a FiOS town, so that's where Verizon always defaults to installing it. And it's accessible because what much more often happens than people messing it up is that they get there and it doesn't work, like what happened to you, and they call the owner or management company like, hey, the Wi-Fi doesn't work, and somebody has to go reboot it. And it's much easier and more practical for them to just tell the renter, just unplug it and plug it back in, and they can like kind of fix it themselves, rather than having to send somebody out there who has access to the owner's shed or whatever. So like I'm surprised yours has done that way, because if it's rented like every summer to different or at least to a bunch of people, I'm surprised that issue hasn't been bothersome enough to them that they haven't just been like, hey, fix it yourself.
I mean, well, part of the thing is when the Eero light turns red and it's like I have no interconnection, I didn't do anything to fix that. It eventually fixed itself and it went back to its normal, terrible speeds. And I don't know what caused that. And maybe something is rebooting inside the shed or whatever. At the previous house, I had the habit of bringing a Wi-Fi extender with me. This is in the days before Eero, but I would bring a Wi-Fi extender so I could get the Wi-Fi signal from where I knew it was locked up. And I would sort of daisy chain these cheap Wi-Fi extenders.
Oh my gosh.
It's not, not a mesh network, not like Eero, but just like a repeater to get the signal. And that would make it so, because it was so bad in that house that in the main sort of living room, the one with this big, giant 80s sectional sofa, like it's the biggest sofa I've ever seen in my life. I should show you a picture of it. It's hilarious. Very 80s. This house was super 80s. Like it was so 80s that it had, I think I've talked about it before, like the in-wall intercoms that rich people houses had in the 80s.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
And like the new tone, like radio, so you could pump radio and a cassette player to play through all the speakers throughout the house. Super 80s.
Welcome to Long Island.
Yeah, exactly. It was such a time capsule. It was amazing. But in the main room with that giant sectional and what was originally a gigantic rear projection television, again, total 80s rich people house, right? There was zero Wi-Fi. You couldn't do anything, right? So I had to, because that's where we wanted to be hanging out. And like as we got more and more devices, it would be like, well, you could be on the comfortable couches talking with people, or you could be in this room on like sitting on this uncomfortable wicker thing, but you can get Wi-Fi. And people would slowly migrate in that direction because they just wanted to be able to use their phones. Anyway, so that's what I used to do there. In this house, what I considered, because I've watched a lot of YouTube, I've watched enough like lock picking channels to know how to pick those combination padlocks.
Oh my word!
You know the combination padlocks, like most of those things where you have like a wheel where you turn the 0 through 9 numbers right on each one. There's pretty simple ways, if you watch YouTube videos, how to open those locks with nothing more than your fingers and feel. It's not as easy as they make it look, especially when the lock is like outdoors and rusted. But I considered doing that, but I'm like, you're like breaking and entering. Don't, just go to the other house. And so that's what I did. I went to their house to do my uploading. So I did always manage to get everything uploaded. I think did I talk about my photography stuff?
No, you talked very briefly on Rectifs about it, but not here yet.
Okay, so I brought the two cameras this year. I brought the camera that Mark gave me, A7 III.
The cursed gift, yes.
Yes, which I was cursed to buy very expensive lenses for.
Yeah, I was literally laughing out loud when I heard that. It was delightful.
Yeah. And I bought my previous year's camera, the A6600, and my plan this year was to not change lenses at the beach, which is something I had done in past years and I'm pretty good at doing, but it's always nerve-wracking. There's wind, there's sand, there's water, there's kids running around the area where you're sitting, kicking up stuff, like, yeah. So I don't want to change lenses at the beach, but I always have to because I got my super long lens to get the kids out in the waves, and I've got, when everyone's back on the blanket, you can't be using a really long zoom because they're 2 inches away from you, and playing on the beach, stuff like that. So my plan was to use my really long zoom lens on my A6600, and then use a more reasonable length on the A7, because I don't have a really long zoom for the A7. If you want to get a decent quality, really long zoom lens for a full frame camera, A, they're as big as a truck, and B, they're really expensive, right?
Yeah.
So I don't have one of those. I just have it on the small one. I'll put the links in the show notes, but the small one I have is the Sony 70-350. So it's 70-350, but it's an APS-C sensor. So that 350 is actually whatever the equivalent is, probably like 400, 500. And it's a good lens. I think it's the most expensive lens I have for my small camera. And the APS-C is not a big deal, because it's super sunny at the beach. Like you don't need extra light gathering or whatever. So that setup served me pretty well. And then on Marco's camera, I have the horrendously expensive Sony 24-70 GM2, which is smaller and lighter than the original GM, which is why I got it, which is why they got it to liberate that money from my wallet, because I wasn't going to buy the other one because it's like, it's kind of an old lens and it's big and it's heavy and this. But wait, here's exactly the lens you wanted, but now it's smaller and it's lighter and it's brand new. And so I got that, and it was very expensive, but it's also very
it probably cost more than the camera.
It was close.
Oh my word!
And I also have I got a used 85 millimeter 1.8. I think I talked about on the show, but I didn't really use that on navigation. So these are the two lenses I used. It was great not having to swap lenses, but I did find myself in the slightly awkward situation of now I have to swap cameras. Usually not a big deal because, hey, if you're down by the waves, you have the one camera, right? But very often, if you're not familiar with the ways of Long Island beaches, there are lifeguards sitting in chairs trying to keep you alive. But in general, on the Long Island beaches, if you want to use surfboards or boogie boards, you're not allowed to use them where the lifeguards are. I always wondered about that. It's been that way since I was a kid. Like, I guess, you're more likely to drown when you're using them. Does it make harder for the lifeguard to see? I don't actually know the reasoning behind that. It's just something I never questioned because it's just been part of my life. But
my best guess is a combination of, like, if you're going to do stuff like far out on floating devices, they don't want to be responsible for you. And then secondarily, maybe that if you're in their zone, they have to keep watch over the water constantly. And if it's probably hard for them to watch a couple of people way out there and also a whole bunch of people like really close to them.
Yeah, I mean, it's not really a distance thing because they don't let you use the boogie boards even if you use it 2 feet from the shore, right? It's just no boogie boards allowed, no surfboards allowed. I'm sure there's very good reasons for it, but I've really never questioned it because it's just been an obvious law. And as I explain this, it probably seems weird. So, it doesn't seem weird to me because I grew up like this, but so they have flags in the sand saying here is the area where if you swim, if you extend those lines out into the water, if you swim between these flags, and they move the flags if more lifeguards come or whatever, swim between these flags, lifeguards are in theory watching you and may save you, right? But if you're outside those flags, you're on your own. And so you're like, well, if they're worried about people dying or if it's a safety thing, forcing them to go far away from the lifeguards where no one is watching them doing the ostensibly more dangerous thing doesn't seem to make sense, but that's exactly what happens, right? So we go to the beach, we bring boogie boards and sometimes surfboards, and then sometimes we basically take a trek or we're going to go down the beach, we're going to go boogie boarding, we're going to go surfboarding or whatever. And so you bring all your stuff and you go down the beach. It's away from, our blanket is by the lifeguards are, and that's where everyone's going in the water mostly, but if we want to do that, you go down the beach. And when I go down the beach, I have to take both cameras with me. One for the long lens for the people who are out surfing, but also for the people, if we're collecting shells or going into little tidal pools on the other side and doing stuff like I need both cameras. So now I've got 2 cameras around my neck walking down the beach and I'm like swapping between them.
How do you not get arrested?
Yeah, seriously.
I mean, I'm going with a family group. It's obvious what I'm, I have occasionally had people come up to me and give me dirty looks or say stuff about like, who are you taking a picture of? I'm like, that's my daughter. They're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but it's not that big. Anyway, so I got 2 cameras around my neck, and I got pretty good at swapping between them, but it was a little bit awkward and heavy dealing with that. Now, doing it the other way, where I have one camera and a backpack with lenses that I get down and swap, was probably worse. But yeah, the 2 camera system. Overall, I give it mostly a thumbs up. I did kind of miss using primes because both of these are zooms. I did kind of miss using primes because I wasn't going to swap to them. I had them with me. I had all my lenses with me if I wanted them, but in practice, I just didn't. I never thought I needed to prime enough to deal with having to change it on the beach. The other thing was we had a bunch of days that were overcast-ish, so a lot of my pictures, it's nicer when it's sunny, but rain was predicted for a lot of the days. The rain mostly held off, which is good. But the light wasn't great on a lot of the days, so that kind of made my pictures more dull than usual. The final thing, and this is not really tech-related, but it is, well, it kind of is. I like to take pictures of birds at the beach. The birds are always there. They're fun to take pictures of. It's fun to mess with the camera. If you follow any of my things on Instagram, you can see lots of pictures of birds. That's me usually using the super really long lens to get them far away and to pull them real close in. Sometimes planes fly over the beach. I get pictures of them. That's fun to do. I did that this year, too. I don't know what the deal is because we were on Long Island last year, right? Like I did this trip last year, I think. But so I can't really blame it on like COVID. Like, so many people haven't been going to the vacation, but now the people are back, right? But this year, the birds were different. This year, the birds were way more aggressive than I had seen them on these beaches in my entire history of going to these specific beaches at this time of the year. gulls on the beach are always, they want your potato chips. Let's face it. They want anything you're eating. That's just what gulls are like on the beach. It's just, it's something you accept, right? But normally they do the bird thing, which is they just kind of hang back or whatever. And then like some kid throws a chip because he thinks it'll be fun, and 1,000 birds descend out of nowhere, and it becomes a giant thing or whatever. And then the parents say, don't throw things to the birds, right? Because it just gets them all, riled up. This year, they weren't waiting for anybody to throw anything. They weren't waiting for a kid to drop a sandwich. They would walk by, and they'd give you this little side eye, and they'd be looking at what you're eating. And they'd, and you'd be looking at them, and you're like, I won't throw anything in the middle, it'll be fine. And they just kind of get a little closer. And then maybe one or two of them would see somebody who like, oh, someone went to the water, and then someone else went to the water, and now no one is at their blanket. I'd go over to that blanket and say, a backpack.
What?
And I stick my nose in that backpack. What do you got in here? Oh, I got a bag of chips. Oh, they got it. And he pulls the bag of chips out of the backpack, and 100 birds come down, and they tear the bag of chips open, and then the people come back from the water, and there's just their bag of chips is gone, and there's a mess by their thing or whatever. They were so aggressive this year. They were pulling things out of people's bags, pulling bags. I posted on Instagram. You can see one pulling a bag of pistachios out. It must be an expensive bag of pistachios. It looks pretty big. They would just go into your stuff and get your food. They weren't waiting for you to throw it, right? The other thing is, so we'd all be there, like it's lunchtime. Everyone comes back to the blanket. They're all wet. They got, their wet hair. They got the towels around them. We're sitting under our umbrellas. All the kids are eating their sandwiches, we're eating the stuff or whatever. And the birds are looking at you, and they know you got stuff. Whatever we're experienced, we're not going to throw them food. Even the little kids know you don't throw foods to the birds. It gets them all riled up. Keep your food to yourself, right? But they keep walking by. And then we had our like chairs in like a U shape, and you could see if you're on one side of the U, you could see on the other side of the U, they're walking behind the other people over there, and you'd be like, psst, there's a bird behind you, and you turn around and look at it, and you think, oh, I turn around and look at it, it's going to fly away. No, the bird would just look at you and say, what? I'm just walking here. Don't mind me, right? And aside from getting pooped on, which should happen once, occasionally they'll fly over your head and poop on you. I'm there with the camera going like, wow, this is great.
Awful.
These birds are real close. I can get lots of pictures of them. And it was really windy, and they were doing a lot of low level flying, like back and forth over the blanket area, which was good for, taking pictures of them, whatever. But they were also doing a lot of low level flying. I'm like, you got the walkers and you got the flyers. And at one point I wasn't paying attention. I was just talking to the people on my side of the thing. And then one of my little nephews started crying on the other side. They're like, what happened? What happened? It's like, oh, the bird tried to like grab his sandwich or something like that. I don't think anyone saw it happen, but he was very upset. And he said that a bird had tried to grab something that he was eating, right? Not that he was throwing food or the bird was pulling something from a bag, but he was trying to get the thing that he was eating. He was very upset by it. And they're all going and comforting the little boy and everything, right? While this is happening, I'm eating my sandwich. Like, we make our own little sandwiches and bring them to the beach. I'm eating my sandwich, and a bird comes from behind me in the air and takes a bite of my sandwich that is in my hands that I am in the process of eating. He didn't get the sandwich because my grip, I grabbed it as they went away, but he took a bite out of it. And of course, now I got to throw out the whole sandwich. It's got a bird bite on it, right? I don't want the bird slobber that came with this thing, but I'm like, it's in my hands, right? And that happened, I think, once again to one other person. So the new move was like when we're eating lunch, hold your food close to your chest and be aware that the nearest bird may be behind you, right? Like we're watching in front of us, we're watching all those birds, watching whatever. Like I thought I was covered. And there was an umbrella too. The thing flew like under the umbrella, over my shoulder, over the back of the seat. And, while still flying, went, chomp, and tried to grab the sandwich out of my hand. These birds are out of control. I don't know what has gotten into them, but they're not afraid anymore. And they're pooping on us, and they're stealing our food out of our hands while we eat it.
That's incredible.
That is nuts.
That does not happen here. Well, here we actually don't allow eating on the beach because we have a very small, very densely populated beach, and that would cause too much litter.
Wait, are you serious?
Yes.
What kind of...
We have a very large volume of people that come to a very small section of the beach. And so we have a lot more rules than most of the surrounding communities because if we didn't, it would be ridiculous.
So if you go to this beach, you can't have lunch on the beach?
Correct.
That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life.
And everyone tells us that. But trust me, if you see like the number of people that come to a very small area, you would see why. Like it makes sense when you see it, but the idea of it angers everybody.
I'll go on faith, but it's not making sense right now.
One of the things they added at the beach that we go to is they have little baskets. They said, hey, if you want to pick up litter on the beach, you can use one of these baskets. Like in practice, maybe the people who run the beach, the county or whatever, cleans up the beach, but people are usually good about litter, or good enough that you don't find litter on the beach for the most part. If you find anything, it's stuff that came from the ocean, not stuff that was left on the beach. But that's probably because they have a big staff of people cleaning it up. So as I would suggest for your community, not letting people eat is one way to do it. Another way is to pay people to clean everything up. I mean, probably why you don't have aggressive birds are like, well, no, there's nothing here. People don't have food. So
we have aggressive teenagers who leave White Claws everywhere, but I think if the birds drank those, they'd have different problems.
Like this beach, there's nothing changed about this beach, and it's not any different than any other sort of South Shore beach that I've been through my whole life. The birds are there; they go nuts if someone throws them a potato chip or whatever. But this year, they've I don't know, they've become more intelligent. The hive mind has descended. I put a link in the.
It's funny, actually. What we do have is people will, they'll park their wagons or oftentimes a baby stroller at the bottom of like the staircase that goes up and over the dune, and we will often see deer eating whatever was left. If they like pack a lunch and it'll be like in a stroller, you'll see a deer eating out of a stroller, which looks hilarious. And, I can't even imagine the people coming back to whatever mess that creates where the deer just ate their sandwich, while they were at the beach.
I got a deer photo this year too. We don't see as many of them as you do, obviously, on Fire Island, but this was just on our beach. It was just hanging out, and the long lens let me reel it in. We'll put a link in the show notes to the picture. So I put all these pictures of birds on my Instagram. And I also put a final sequence of birds of saying, let me show you what they're really up to, which is stealing your food. And so you can see in that one a picture of a bird standing on someone's backpack about to get into it, and a bird pulling a bag of pistachios out of someone's bag. And that other bird, the previous one, the bird is like looking under a seat. That's in our little circle. They just walk right into the circle. They're like, oh, there's no one in the seat. Let me check under here. There might be some potato chips.
All right, we have a bit of a long after show special this week, so we're going to call it here. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Thanks to our sponsors, Trade Coffee, Memberful, and Stack Overflow. Thanks to our members who support us directly. You can join us at atp.fm/join, and we will talk to you next week.
Now the show is over. They didn't even mean to begin, 'cause it was accidental. Oh, it was accidental. John didn't do any research. Marco and Casey wouldn't let him, 'cause it was accidental. Oh, it was accidental. And you can find the show notes at atp.fm. And if you're into Twitter, you can follow them at CASEYLISS. So that's Casey Liss, MARCOARMENT, Marco Arment, SIRAC, USA Syracuse. It's accidental. They didn't mean to. Accidental. Tech podcast so long.
I'm getting my driving permit for driving on the sand.
The sand driving permit, that is very exciting. I will confess that I knew this already, but that is extremely exciting. I'm very, very excited for you. And so you will finally be able to use the FJ as it has been intended.
And this will make a massive difference in the quality of my life and the things we are able to do in the winter. Because, we live on Fire Island. The only way to get here normally is by ferry. The ferry does run in the winter, but they only run like a few boats a day, and it's such that you can go off island to go shopping or go to the doctor or whatever for either 90 minutes or 8 hours, and the way the schedule works. And the last boat leaves the mainland at like 4 p.m. or 3:30 p.m. So you can't do anything off the island that would take longer than 3:30 p.m. Otherwise, you cannot get back to your house that night.
Cool.
So this year we will have the driving permit, and that makes so much difference because then you can just drive yourself off in the winter. You can't drive in the summer because it's full of people, and you don't need to because there's tons of ferries in the summer, so it's fine. But yeah, in the winter, finally we will have this, and this I need to like get glasses probably. I have to go to the eye doctor, and I just it's hard to do that. Like there's so much stuff like that just we've kind of been putting off for the last couple of years because it was very difficult to do year round. So, oh man, I'm so happy.
Okay, so to be clear, in the future, you can take the FJ and you can, and the problem is that the particular town you're in Fire Island, the streets, as you would call them, are not really streets at all. Or, I mean, I guess you said, I've never been, but my understanding is you maybe could put a car on it if you really, really tried, but it's certainly not meant for that, whether or not it's legal. And so the issue is that you have to drive on the sand to get to the end of the regular car streets. And then once you're on the car streets, then you can go to like a bridge or a causeway or what have you in order to get to the mainland. Is that all fair?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, there isn't even a road that has no sand that goes the whole way, even if I wanted to. Right? There is. So the roads on Fire Island are basically wide sidewalks, and they are just wide enough that one car or truck can fit down them. And they're so narrow that, if you're driving your car or truck down them, your mirrors will be brushing against everyone's bushes the whole way down. Like, that's how narrow it is. It is exactly wide enough to fit a truck or a car, and that's it. And so this has a number of challenges when you're driving on these quote roads. So one is, obviously, cars can't pass each other. So if someone's coming the other way, somebody has to like stop and back up into a side street to let the other person pass. And so there's a lot of like backing up around these corners and everything, and you got to have very good visibility. You have to really know your vehicle. It has to be hopefully as like small of a footprint as you can get it, while still being able to have very good four-wheel drive capability to go over the sand to get there in the first place. And there's a bunch of houses that all have, landscaping and stuff that butt right up against the walk sometimes. And so you really have to be very careful. It's a very like slow, careful way of driving here. And again, visibility, vehicle maneuverability and footprint are very important. But everyone's driving trucks and SUVs, so they can actually get them here. So that's the situation. For me to drive off of the island, I basically have to either drive we call it the inland route, which is through all the towns on all these very, very narrow walks, or I can drive a short distance on narrow walks and then get myself onto the sand and drive I think it's about 3 miles on the sand, and then cut back in at the last minute and go off, onto a bridge or whatever.
I didn't even think there was an inland route. There's a way you could do this without going on the sand?
It just has less sand.
Oh, right.
It's like, you don't drive on the beach, but you have to drive on the inland route, and the inland road has a few sections in it that are just extremely loose, like sugar sand, which is it's even harder to drive on than the beach. So anyway, that's the situation. So now that it came in right at this time, right between 2 school years, and the amount of time that we are planning on continuing to live here is measured in school years, and it is going to be most likely either 1 or 2 more school years. So the timing of this was like, wait a minute. If we now need a car for either 1 or 2 years for this role, maybe I should trade in the FJ Cruiser for something new that would, be nicer for this purpose. And I'll tell you some things that went into this decision.
Wait, before you go on from that, why is it that there's a 1 or 2 year thing? Suddenly that means you need a new car. I don't make this connection.
Because it's Marco.
I have two clear paths here. Path number 1, just keep the FJ Cruiser and don't touch it. Just don't change anything. Keep what I have. So there are some advantages. Obviously, that's the cheapest solution. That is the least hassle. And the advantage of owning something outright as opposed to like a lease or anything like that is flexibility too. I don't know exactly how long I'm going to need or want this vehicle. When I move back to, civilization, I'm probably not going to want to be driving an off-road SUV as my main car. I won't need it really for that. So I'm probably going to need this car for 2 years. That's the most likely term here.
But you already have a car that you could keep for exactly 2 years.
Right.
Yeah, you already have it.
Correct. However, the long-term reliability of this car is a big question mark because...
Of a Toyota.
Yes, well, it has almost 100,000 miles, and it's been driven very hard on the beach for all those miles. Like, the previous owner of this car would drive it back and forth to the mainland a few times a week, at least. That's a lot of mileage for sand miles, because you don't understand what this does to cars. Like, the underside, all rusted out. Like, the frame, tons of rust everywhere. I got a little concerned because the other FJ Cruisers that have been in this island of similar vintage have been dropping like flies in the last year. they've been being replaced because they keep rusting out in critical, like, frame ways. And when that happens, your trade-in value goes through the floor, and it's a big pain in the butt, etc. So anyway, so that's one factor, is I'm a little concerned about reliability for 2 years of regular use in this way. Also, I mentioned the maneuverability and stuff around the town. The visibility in the FJ Cruiser is horrendous. Like, it's really bad visibility for a couple of reasons. Mainly, like, it has those wide like body color C pillars, I guess, would they be, or B pillars, whatever they are. It has these big blind spot blockages in its frame design, and also, while it has a backup camera, as I mentioned when I got it, it's the tiny little display in the rearview mirror that has the approximate resolution of a QuickTime video in 1996. Like, it is very small and low resolution, and you can't see crap at night. So one thing I thought was, okay, well, maybe I just keep the FJ and install like a new CarPlay radio with an aftermarket backup camera that has like a nice new backup camera. So that's one option I could do. But visibility in general in the car, that's something that's harder to change. There is a lot of, as I mentioned, a lot of undercarriage wear and rust, and like so much. Like when I went to install the license plate, the license plate mount is all rusted out. So I had to like go buy my own license plate mount, screw it on with some screws into something that might work. I got a tow hitch shackle so I could be pulled out if I had to. I tried to remove that tow hitch shackle recently, and I just can't. Like, it's the new piece of metal that I put into the old tow hitch receiver is now rusted into it.
Cool.
So the amount of rust that I'm hitting here is substantial. Also, driving the FJ Cruiser, there are certain things about it that are convenient. It has all these like nice old style controls. Everything's all like manual. But that's also a downside in the sense that it lacks a lot of modern things that I am accustomed to that I really miss when I don't have them. So one thing, Bluetooth. It has Bluetooth, but it's very limited, and I found it to be very unreliable. It doesn't have modern conveniences like proximity keys, climate control. I like having big manual knobs when I want to adjust things manually, but I hate having to then constantly tweak. All right, wait, turn the temperature up a little bit. Wait, turn the fan speed down a little bit. Like, I know I did this forever when I was learning how to drive on older regular cars for my entire youth. But I also know that now now climate control is nice. It's one less thing to worry about. All right, automatic headlights, great feature. And I have it. I have it on the Tesla, so that's fine. Having to turn on and off the headlights manually, it's like one more thing I have to now think about and possibly fail at some point to do. Other things that I've gotten used to, a speed limit display on the dash. Like, the car is using some kind of camera to recognize speed limit signs and displaying the speed limit on the dash. I love this feature because I don't have to keep a lookout for the signs constantly. If I happen to miss one and I wonder, hey, am I going the speed limit? I can just glance down and it's right there on the display. That's a nice feature. I'm now accustomed to that. I know I could drive without it. I have, with the FJ, I've driven without it, but it sucks to drive without it once you're used to it. The brake hold, where you push the brake to stop the car, and then when you're stopped, you can let go of the brake and the car holds itself there. I love that feature in the Tesla and many other modern nice cars. I really love that feature. And of course, the FJ doesn't have it, so it makes it feel more like an automatic, where as soon as you lift off the brake slightly, you start creeping forward pretty quickly, actually. And it's like, oh, wait, hold on, I don't want to go yet. And then other modern safety features, like the little blind spot warning lights on rear view, or on side view mirrors, rather. Stuff like that. I like that kind of stuff. I like having modern safety features. And then finally, obviously CarPlay would be nice to have. It could be added aftermarket, though, so that's the thing. But other factors that played into my decision here, the parking situation has proven to be more burdensome than I expected, because the ferry lot, we have to pay for permits, and they're very expensive, and so it's not really worth paying for 2 permits to park 2 vehicles, and then having to move 2 vehicles, having to shuffle them around and everything. Ideally, I would love a car that one vehicle could just be my car to be 4-wheel drive and be able to drive back and forth from Westchester to the ferry. And the FJ, the amount of rust and wear and tear on this car, I don't think I would trust it to be reliable in that role, to be doing those long distance drives as well as the 4-wheel drive stuff. Not to mention, I would miss all that modern tech and the comfort of more comfortable vehicles. But what finally kind of pushed me to look at something else is that I made the mistake of looking up what it's worth.
Oh, no.
And the FJ Cruiser is worth more than I paid for it.
Oh, my gosh. You bought it like 6 months ago, right? Or a year ago at most?
I got it like last November, so almost a year ago. So, but after less than a year, it is worth more than I paid for it, and more enough to even cover things like that I had to pay the sales tax to register it and all that other stuff. Like, it even covers all that. Like, it's worth a lot more.
I'm sure that motivates you, but as we get to the later part of this segment here, I'm going to say that in no way does getting rid of the FJ result in you eventually saving money, as we will see.
No, of course not. I mean, none of these options, but...
This is very much like, I mean, for people who are longtime listeners of the program, Marco often does this with Macs. He will get a Mac that he thinks is going to be the Mac that is going to serve his needs. But then, 3 months later, he'll be like, you know what? I got this Mac expecting to X and Y, but really Z. And so he sells it and gets a different Mac. This is exactly like that, but much bigger.
Yes. That is a perfect analogy.
Well, and yeah, no part of this is about like, I'm not pretending like it. I'm going to save money by getting a new car. No, it's more like I have this car that I, quote, just bought, really, but it is now worth so much more than what I paid for it that I can kind of see that as like, okay, I can keep this, or I can basically use it as a credit towards something else.
Hopefully whoever you sell it to doesn't hear the part about all the rust underneath.
Well, I'm thinking it's going to be pretty visually obvious if they even take a cursory look.
Well, it's on the underside. Maybe they don't check.
You can't miss. No, you can see it from the side. Like you can't miss it.
When you're driving it, can you see the road below you?
Right?
Not yet, but wouldn't surprise me.
So Marco, at this point, you've decided in a very Marco way that you would like to solve a problem that may or may not even be a problem in the first place by throwing money at it. So
correct.
Welcome, new listeners. This is the same as it ever was. But anyway, so you want a car that you said has great visibility.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to know the edges of the car, and it's very good on sand. So what you're saying is you want something that's got very, very short overhangs.
I think you left out one item there from the bullet list, which is comfortable to drive back and forth.
So like I said, you want a car that has short overhangs. You want a car that has short overhangs that is extremely capable off-road and can do both of those things reasonably well. So what you're saying is you want a Wrangler.
So I decided I did some research and I asked some friends. I'm like, hey, what should I be looking at here? And watched a bunch of YouTube car reviews and off-road tests and everything like that. What I came to was a short list. I wanted to look at the Toyota 4Runner, the Jeep Wrangler, and particularly the 4xe, the plug-in hybrid Jeep Wrangler, and the Land Rover Defender. I will say towards the end, I was tipped off I should look at the Ford Bronco. This came kind of too late for me to plan to see it, but based on reviews, because like I knew the Bronco existed.
Towards the end, we've been yelling Bronco at you for like a month.
I was about to say we've been saying this. Both
but
of
you
us
were
have been
ignoring
saying
us.
this.
I know, I get it.
Well, and I thought, based on just not listening very closely, I guess I thought they were like impossible to get.
I thought that was true too, in your defense, and that it does not seem to be true. But I also thought that they were hard to come by.
Yeah, I should also say I have been on the wait list for a Rivian for a while now. My current estimated delivery for the and I'm looking particularly at the R1S, the SUV model, because if you want an R1T and you're willing to pay a premium, there's a whole bunch of them for sale nationwide now, like people who are flipping them. And you can get a lightly used Rivian truck model, the R1T, for a lot of money, but you can get it. The R1S, the SUV, seems like it is just barely starting to be trickled out, and there are currently none for sale anywhere as far as I can find. So my reservation would hold, which was like, a year from now, which is like, well, I probably at that point, I'm not even going to really need this car that much after one more year. So, that's probably not a good option. Also, I mean, that's a lot. That's even more money than everything else I'm looking at. So anyway, we had this kind of break in the summer between like summer camp for Adam and this other thing he was doing. And so we kind of had nothing to do for a week. And I'm like, wouldn't it be fun to take my kid for car shopping? Because I know when I was a kid, I think we only got 2 cars in my entire childhood. But I loved the shopping process. Like, it was so much fun for me to like go and like whenever like family friends would buy cars, I'd want to go with them like to their car buying experiences because it's just fun, And I wasn't sure if Adam would like it or not. So he's 10, so that's like right at the age where I think you start thinking this stuff is cool. So anyway, I decided, all right, we're going to go off. I planned this whole trip. We're going to go off and go to Toyota, Jeep, Land Rover, drive all three, and I'm going to have Adam actually rank them as well to see what he thinks because I never sit in the back seat. I don't know what's important for backseat passengers the way he does, and he had a lot of fun doing it. And so he developed a 25-point review scale for the cars.
Oh my god!
There were 10 points allocated for what he first called comfortability. I later taught him the word comfort, and so it's like, all right, that's the word you're looking for. So he corrected it. So 10 points for rear seat comfort, 10 points for rear seat visibility, and 5 points for smell.
Okay.
He also ranked the dealers themselves separately from the vehicles. He didn't have a point scale for the dealers themselves, but he wanted to rank things like how comfortable are the chairs that he was forced to sit in while I was talking to the salespeople. So we first went to Toyota because I thought the 4Runner was the most likely thing I would pick.
I still think, leaving aside the fact, which is a big aside, and I'm coming back to it, leaving aside the fact that the on-road manners of a Jeep Wrangler are not stupendous, I will concede that. I still think, all things considered, the Wrangler is the best option. And for the purposes of the show, if nothing else, if you somehow end up with a freaking Wrangler when I don't, that would be amazing. And so I stand by. I think the Wrangler is the most correct answer. I think, however, that if you do any of these terrible ideas, and the Wrangler is also a terrible idea in its own way, I think you're going to end up in the Defender because it is the most Marco answer possible. With that said, John, I would like your opinion, and then please, I would like the blow-by-blow in excruciating detail of all these visits.
Well, I mean, I'm against the Wrangler for many reasons, and now when I'm thinking about the comfortability score of that Wrangler, it's not looking good. I really don't think those back seats are going to be Adam pleasing. I would lobby for excluding the comfort of the chair Adam had to sit in while you talk to the dealer from your decision-making matrix.
Fair enough. Well, and also I've been not massively drawn to Wranglers so far, but the 4xe being a plug-in hybrid with like a 20-mile battery-only range and by all accounts a very good plug-in hybrid, that really got my attention. And that's why I started looking at Jeep again, because I love electric so much. That is the only even electric-ish off-road option besides Rivian, and therefore it's the only electric-ish option you can get for a nice off-road vehicle that you can actually buy in today. That's actually available to buy. So that's what got me looking at it. But I admit I had low expectations of the rest of it, but I thought electric is really compelling to me. So let me give that a really good look.
And before people send things in, there are a lot of electric SUVs. It's just that the off-road demands, or at least according to Marco's criteria, like we need more than something like the Solterra from Subaru and the Toyota Twin to that. There's lots of like sort of small SUVs that are full electric, or even something like the Mustang Mach-E that are basically tall wagons. Those apparently don't have the off-road chops to do what needs to be done. Only the Rivian and something like a true dedicated off-road thing like a Wrangler or a Defender or 4Runner or something can handle the sand.
Yeah, those vehicles really, they mostly lack in ground clearance. That's what really kills them. Mm-hmm.
I wonder if an F-150 Lightning would have done the trick, but I don't think you can get your hands on one.
Yeah, trucks would, for sure. Most people out here drive either these off-roaders or very large SUVs or trucks. But I didn't want to drive a truck. Like they're a little bit longer, which I think makes the maneuverability a little bit more difficult on these streets, especially for a truck novice like me. And also like that's not the kind of cargo allotment that I want, because I wanted this to be able to go back and forth to Westchester. It needs to hold a lot too. And trucks can hold a lot in the bed unless it's raining or snowing, and then you get the covers and all this other, and like I didn't want to deal with any of that. I just wanted like a large vehicle. That's fine. Anyway.
Also, I think it's hard to get Lightning still.
Yeah, I agree. I
would expect that to be very difficult. I didn't even look, but I expect that. Anyway. So first went to Toyota because everyone here, all the year-round residents here who had FJ Cruisers have replaced them with either 4Runners or Wranglers. So I figure, all right, the 4Runner, and the 4Runner, as soon as you see one, if you do any research at all, or if you see both vehicles, it's clear that the 4Runner is like, it has taken up the crown of the FJ Cruiser. I know I probably existed at the same time, but it is clearly like this is like the same kind of vehicle with many of the same kinds of appeal. Okay, so Toyota, the dealer was very convenient. It's in a great location, giant dealer. Adam said it was the best chair he ever sat in up to that point. However, buying a car in mid-2022 is not normal. Obviously, we are in the midst of a supply chain crunch with the world, and cars in particular have gotten very hard hit. And so, to give you some example of the situation, the Toyota dealership, the dealer website listed they had 16 new 4Runners in inventory. When I got there, they had 0.
What?
Also, every new 4Runner they have has a $7,000, quote, dealer adjustment added to the price.
Oh my gosh, get out of here with that.
So
you didn't spend very long in Toyota then?
Well, they did have a couple of used ones that were like a couple of years old. And the thing about the 4Runner is that it basically has not changed in like 10 years or something. It's been a long time. It's a very like old model line that is waiting for an upgrade that is supposed to be updated, I think, next year. But the current one is very old.
It's also very ugly. What happened to the 4Runner? I remember it back from, when I was a kid. It did not look this ugly.
Yeah. But anyway, so I did get to drive I think it was a 2020 model. It was a couple of years old. And there aren't really major differences between that and the new ones, except the new ones have a slightly bigger media screen. And they have a nice side camera view, which I really like a lot. And I wish I got to see it, but I couldn't. Compared to the other vehicles I was looking at, the 4Runner is the cheapest. But this is relative, and this is with today's market. The off-road premium model that I'd be looking at as a minimum would be like $56,000 with the dealer markup.
Oh, good grief.
But keep in mind, I have a very highly valued trade-in. And by the way, not only is the FJ Cruiser worth a lot, they want it. It's a rare car that people love, and it's in high demand. They know that they can flip it instantly. So anyway, I show up at that thing, and I got a lot of salesperson attention. Hey, what can we get you into today?
Yeah.
But the 4Runner, it has the worst colors of all the bunch. It is the oldest looking. It is the most boring looking. The interior is exactly what you expect from Toyota. It is ultra fine.
I know those feels.
It is functional, and it is totally forgettable. That being said, it had the biggest trunk space that I saw that day by a lot. It has a very big trunk. Driving felt a lot like the FJ Cruiser, but bigger. It feels like you're driving a giant box, and that is not a great thing. Visibility is okay, not great. Backup camera and screen are still very old, low resolution. As I mentioned, the modern ones are improved, but not massively so. And it has, because it's such an old platform, it has an old engine and a 5-speed automatic transmission, and they really hold it back, and they make it feel old. Like when you step on the gas and it has to wait, and then upshift to this very different gear from the one it was in. Like you kind of feel like, okay, now I understand why these like 8 and 10 speed automatic transmissions are better than the old 5-speed ones, because you have a lot more gears in the middle that it can shift to and get be more responsive and more efficient and everything. But ultimately, the 4Runner didn't make me feel excited because it felt like an old car being sold as new. It's like if you bought one of those, like one of the non-Retina MacBook Airs brand new in like 2018. Like it felt like that. Yeah. Like overall, I came out of the 4Runner experience thinking like, okay, I'm probably going to end up buying this, but I'm not excited about it. This is a vehicle. It serves a function. It will take me where I'm going, and I will feel nothing. Like that's the function this vehicle serves.
So it's a Toyota. It gets you where you're going, and you feel nothing along the way.
Exactly. Then we went over to Jeep. I wanted to drive the 4xe. No. So the Jeep, the dealer, it was not a great. It was like this terrible location. Adam did appreciate that it had balloons inside the dealer room. Everything was like all red, white, and blue. Flag balloons. Like it was super over the top with America. He rated the chairs as medium. The dealer listed that they had 8 new Wrangler 4xe in inventory. They had 1.
That's better than 0.
Yes. And they seem to be selling it for MSRP. So not adding on weird things to the price. Which
also impressive.
Yeah, very. So we went out for a test drive. The battery was totally dead.
There's a surprise, of course.
Great dealer, guys. Good job. You're selling an electric car. You don't plug it in. Thanks a lot. So I could not test any electric driving at all. I've watched enough reviews and stuff that I knew they have these different modes. You can push this button on the side for electric only or hybrid, or this thing called e-save, where it basically won't use the battery at all, but will charge it as much as possible with like regen braking and stuff like that. So I did the whole test drive in e-save mode and did a lot of like intentional like speed up and then let it regen brake for a little while, and then speed up and just doing a lot of regen, hoping that I could at least at the end of the drive get a little bit of electric anything.
Yep.
I got no electric experience at all.
Oh.
And this is the only one they had, and I'm not going to sit there all day waiting for them to try to charge it. I have a 10-year-old and I have other stuff to do, so But I will say, so, and the Wrangler, this is for a decent 4xe, we're looking at like $70,000. This is not
just real quick. Wranglers are absurdly expensive. Like, I understand they hold their value, blah blah blah, but they are ridiculously expensive.
Yeah.
Part of the reason I'm in a Golf R right now and not a Wrangler is because I started pricing out Wranglers, and even getting like a beater Wrangler and optioning it with what I consider to be the bare minimum amount of options. This is what, 4 years ago now. It was still like $55,000 4 years ago. They are so expensive. It's preposterous that you could spend $70,000 on a Wrangler and not even blink an eye.
Yeah, and again, and cars in general right now are very expensive. But the Wrangler, you're right. The Wrangler has kind of always been like this. But I will say, so it kind of surprised me, actually. I'd never actually driven a Jeep before. It was much smaller inside than the others. Now, it's interesting. It's not that much smaller outside. They're big vehicles. Like they are full-sized SUVs, basically. Between the 4Runner, the Wrangler, and the Defender, they're all about the same size. They're like within a couple of inches here and there, but they're all approximately the same size. So anyway, it was very cramped inside though, because the Jeep, like, it has it kind of flares out the body from the doors and everything, and so the inside's kind of like it's like somebody applied padding or a margin. They like inset the whole inside compared to the footprint. So you have a lot less space in the Wrangler than the others. Both the trunk space, and I hated the way the trunk opens, where you have to like pull the bottom out and then lift the glass up, because like I did not like that at all. But everything is cramped in the Jeep. Even the controls are cramped, because since you can remove the doors, they don't put any controls on the doors. So everything is just shoved into the middle in this giant, this wall of like switches.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. But at least you have switches. I mean, that's more than we can say for your damn Tesla.
That's true. Also, because the Jeep is convertible, you have those giant, what are they? Like the C pillars, the big diagonal pillars that run from the back seat into the trunk. You have these giant like pillars that are eating into the inside space even more, and so it feels like you're in like a roll cage for a race car inside your car.
Well, you are. I mean, that is what you're in.
Yeah, you literally are. So everything kind of just felt cramped. Niceness wise, this does not feel like a $70,000 car, even at today's prices. And Adam did not appreciate the comfortability of the back seat. The headrest in particular, he said like it was tilting his head at a weird angle. It was not getting good reviews from either of us. That being said, when I drove it, even without the electric drivetrain working, stupid dealers, it was surprisingly fast and nimble. I was very pleasantly surprised by that, much more so than the others. Like the 4Runner just felt like a big slow box. The Wrangler really felt almost car-like in its like weight and nimbility, whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
I was very impressed by how it felt, how it handled. If I actually had electric to help me out, it would have been even better. I totally see why people buy them, and in fact, I would even say it did not seem less comfortable on the road than the 4Runner or the FJ Cruiser. So sorry, John.
Thank you. I consider this a moral and personal victory. I know you're not going to buy a Wrangler.
Maybe you didn't hit any potholes.
Oh, God, stop it, John.
Well, hitting a pothole in any of these vehicles is not fun, but
I think the other ones have independent suspension, don't they?
I think so, yeah. But I was expecting it to be way more rough than what it was.
Thank you very much.
I would say it is exactly as comfortable in, at least, for like, a 10 or 15 minute test drive. It was exactly as comfortable as the 4Runner, in my opinion.
Well, Adam disagrees.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Frankly, though, I think the Jeep would be low on my list. Also, because I learned since then that electric range of 20 miles or so on the sand, it would be more like 4, maybe
20 yards, maybe.
You said you only need 3. You're good.
Yeah, but okay, so I can power off one way and then not be able to use electric on the way back at all. Like, so it's not great. The appeal is less so when it's that short. But that being said, as they have things like they have a Cherokee 4xe that's kind of out, but nobody has them yet. But so that might become something in the future. Who knows? But anyway, I totally appreciate the Wrangler now that I've driven one. It's not for me though. It has a lot of personality that the 4Runner doesn't have. You drive that car and you feel something, but it's not what I want to feel.
and that's fair.
But I get it. Like, I get why people like it.
I consider this a victory in the Casey camp. I just wanted you to understand that this isn't a rolling piece of crap. I totally understand and sympathize that it may not be for you. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you were to look at the chats that the three of us and a few other people on the Relay Slack were having, according to John and Marco, before Marco drove it, that thing was like driving on wheels shaped like squares. Like, that's how rough apparently it is.
I mean, did you take it like on the highway at like 70 miles an hour? I mean, it's not...
John, when was the last time you were in a Wrangler?
I don't know, but they don't get good reviews. Like I said, the phrase that rings in my mind when I see these things, and granted, this is a fancy Wrangler, and it's it's not like a 2-door tiny thing with a short wheelbase or whatever, but it was we've said this in past programs, like driving a grand piano with the door open on it. With the lid open, sorry. Driving a grand piano with the lid open.
I will say too, so the one we were test driving had the electrically retractable soft top roof, and boy, that thing leaks a lot of sound. And probably temperature as well, if I had to guess.
So did you drive it on the highway or no?
No, we were on like Long Island car dealer neighborhood. So there were these you could go like 55 on some of the bigger roads for a little while, and then you'd stop and turn and go down some side streets, then go back to the bigger roads. That kind of thing.
Because I have to imagine that the 4Runner is going to be smoother and quieter at highway speeds.
Maybe. Well, and also I should point out too, with the FJ and with the way I drive these things, because these trips begin and end on sand, you don't keep very much tire pressure. When you have low-ish tire pressure, you don't want to be driving that fast on the highway or taking, really fast turns or anything. So I drive these vehicles very gently, and on the highway, I don't usually go above 60. I keep it very slow.
You wouldn't reinflate after getting off the sand?
If I was going to Westchester, I would. But if I'm just going to the grocery store, no.
Yeah.
So therefore I keep it slow and gentle for sure. Anyway, the Jeep. I get it now much more than I did before, but it's not for me. Like, it's clearly, you give up so much for it to be convertible and disassemblable, and those are things I don't want to give up and I don't need that. So went over to Land Rover. It was across the street, conveniently, Long Island. Adam's chair rating was medium, although he later found the large leather cube chair. After the test drive, he found that, and he upgraded his rating to the best chairs.
Excellent.
He also this was getting in mid afternoon. We were getting a little bit hungry and bored by this point. So I found the little push button coffee machine in their waiting area, and it had a hot chocolate option. He gave solid marks for that. He did suggest, next to the coffee push-button maker thing, there was another push-button machine for dispensing all sorts of garbage chemical sweeteners to your coffee. He suggested they should add marshmallows to the dispenser for the hot chocolate users, which I think was a good suggestion. Anyway,
nice.
The dealer website here listed 4 new Defenders available. 0 of the 4 were actually there.
Oh, cool.
Why did you settle on the Defender, by the way, of all the vehicles that they offer?
It seemed like the most direct competitor for these things. I don't know. I didn't look that much into it, to be honest. But their other ones seem like they're both more expensive, and that you give a bit on stuff like ground clearance and a little bit of the off-road abilities. So anyway, they had no new Defenders available, despite listing 4 of them on the website. The new models on the website, they listed a quote accessories charge on each one that was between $12,000 and $19,000.
Oh my gosh!
And it would say what it was for, and it was for vague things like the protector package. What? It's like stuff that it's like they're obviously this is just their dealer markup, but they just for whatever reason didn't want to say that or couldn't say that. So, anyway, they did, however, have one used Defender from last year, the 2021 model, on the lot. And there was a customer-owned one parked in the lot that was a different color that I could compare. I could test drive the one used one they had. And it had most of what I wanted anyway. So anyways, I'm like, all right, let me see this. And it was it's 1 year old, 10,000 miles. Great. Overall, the interior space was very kind of medium. The 4Runner was the most space by far. The Jeep was the least space by far. This was right in the middle. Medium-sized trunk. For some reason, massively tall headroom. Even John, I think, would feel comfortable with his perfect hair in this car.
Land Rovers are always very tall cars. They look tall, and I guess they are tall in real life. They're just, the better to tip over.
Yeah. Oh, people in chat are asking which size Defender. The 4-door 110 model. They apparently have a 130 coming out now that's even bigger, if that's like Casey's SUV size, because it has to fit more people in it. But no, this is the 110, the kind of medium-sized 4-door one. Anyway, so we went for a test drive on that. I will say also, after the test drive, this was fun. It's one of these dealers that has like this little mini off-road demo course like in the parking lot.
Oh, that's cool. That's not fair.
And so the salesman took us on this. I thought I was going to die. Adam thought it was the most amazing thing ever. Where, the car, you drive the car up on this like 45-degree angle and you're like, how is it not tipping over? I feel like why is it not? How, like, it should be tipping over and it doesn't. It was really fun. But
this is the most off-road use that most of the cars they sell are ever going to get is in this parking lot. You're actually going to use it off-road, but most people are like, what?
Exactly. But anyway, so everything inside was, medium-sized. By far the nicest interior. Not even close.
There's a surprise.
Not even a little bit close. Like, by far the nicest interior. Also, by far the nicest drive. I was surprised how car-like it was in handling. Not in size. It felt like a big car. A very big car. And all of these cars, like when I'm driving them, because I'm used to driving cars, I'm used to sitting much lower. And all of these feel like I'm sitting in the sky. Not only is it an SUV, it's an off-road SUV. So you're looking down into other SUVs. Like you're even higher than most SUVs are by like 6 or 7 inches. So like you're looking down at it. Like it's the weirdest thing for me because I don't usually drive these kind of vehicles. So it's like, anyway, it's good to feel tall. Yeah. So the Land Rover easily won the Adam vote with its many USB charging ports everywhere. He was amazed that his back seat had 3 USB charging ports available within his reach. By far the nicest screen, like the big media screen. It has this really nice 360-degree camera system. It uses multiple cameras to simulate an actual like 360 like swoop around view of the car. So you have both the top-down view, and you can like back it out and like look around. Look up YouTube videos of this.
Doesn't your Tesla do that too?
No, it doesn't. Tesla has backup camera, and that's it.
Oh, I'm surprised. All the big Lux brands have the swoop around the camera, or the car thing now.
Yeah, Aaron's car does.
Oh my God, it was so nice. And the
Your
other two,
M5 had that.
No, it had
Yes,
top
it did.
down. Yeah, it had top down. It only had sides and back. It didn't have a front camera, so it was a little bit limited. But anyway, and the 4Runner has the side cameras and sort of a front one now. And it does a similar kind of camera arrangement, but not the way they don't like composite it together into anything cool. But it does have that for reference. But when I saw that in like YouTube reviews, I'm like, oh my God, to have that on the streets here when I have to like back up and not crush somebody's lawn or break their fence or if I like back up into somebody's side street to let a car pass, like, oh my God, to have that over what I've been doing with the FJ is very different. It also has, I've never seen this before. Maybe you guys know about these. It has an option that if you flip the rear view mirror so that normally you'd like flip it to turn on the polarizer or whatever, it uses a camera in the rear fin on the roof and gives you a screen as your rear view mirror.
Yeah, I'm familiar with this as a thing. I don't know of any models off the top of my head other than this that have it, but I'm familiar with this as a thing.
Yeah, that's the thing. On supercars where there's no rear visibility, it's only a screen. But yeah, the ones that switch between regular and screen. And honestly, like I understand why they have both, and the ones where you have both, because screen technology is such that there are situations where the mirror is superior to the screen, but that gap is shrinking real quick. I do wonder how long, because the advantage the camera has is unobstructed view, right? It doesn't have to go through people's heads or headrests or anything like that.
Or the spare tire mounted on the back trunk lid, you know?
Exactly, yeah. Or the cargo. If you've packed the thing with cargo, you can't see anything, right?
Yeah, like the rear visibility outside of all these vehicles is compromised because there's a wheel stuck to the back of them, and you're going through, like, the visibility with this camera mirror was better than the visibility out of any car I've ever seen. Like, it's better than my Tesla because it has the headrest in the way and like the shape of the trunk. Like, oh my god, massive, like, game changer to see that kind of mirror. That was amazing. Also, Adam said it had the nicest smell. So
Fair.
by far the nicest option of all the contenders, but also the most expensive. So it's basically the Apple, / Marco choice, right? It was the only one that I actually felt something about, and I actually wanted after the test drive. The other ones, I walked away, I'm like, okay, fine. This, me feeling like I wanted an SUV is like John wanting a laptop. That doesn't happen. Like that. This is a category of things that I don't think I ever want. I actually wanted this. Even though it was more money than the others, it wasn't even that much more. Like when you compare, it was like the difference between economy and first class on a plane. But if first class only costs like 30% more instead of 3 times more, and if you were committed to your choice for like years instead of hours, it was a huge difference in niceness and features and comfort for not a huge price increase. So I got it.
Wait, the used one?
Yep.
Oh, well, congratulations. So to be clear, you decided to replace a admittedly old, but still a Toyota, which will probably run until the end of time. You decided to replace that with a British SUV. Godspeed.
The Toyota's engine would run until the end of time.
Yeah, fair.
Did you buy it or did you lease it?
I bought it because I don't. Can you even lease a used car?
What happened to the whole leasing plan? The whole idea was you got the 2-year window. You don't want the car that's going to be damaged by salt. You do the lease. You give it back. It's someone else's problem. What happened to that?
First of all, the prices of the new ones, especially being so inflated by the dealers, are way more than the prices of the used ones. Like the difference is even bigger than it usually is between new and used. And I don't know if I'm going to need this car for 1 year, 2 years, or maybe even 3 years. I don't know. So to have the flexibility is actually nice. Plus, to apply a trade-in that covered like half the cost was very, very nice. I don't even know how you would have done that because I think the trade-in value would have covered all of the lease payments. So I don't even know if that would even function that way. Anyway, so that's why I did that. And the condition of the frame and stuff on the FJ and the amount of rust, trading it into a dealer was the way to go. And they saw it. They knew what it was. But they also know the market. They did the same research I did, found out they could probably flip it to some auction for, X dollars, and they gave me a really good price. I negotiated a very good price for the trade-in and everything. So that was good.
So what color is it?
It is the blue.
All right.
That's part of the reason why I got the used one, actually. I had located, there was a new one coming in the green color, coming into a different dealer sometime soon. But I said at the front of this, like they had a used one in the lot, and they had a customer's car that was something that was owned, so I couldn't drive it. The customer's car was the green color, and I parked it right next to each other. And I looked at it, I'm like, I don't like the green actually. Like in person, it's much lighter than you think it is. It looks almost like a green tinted silver, and like the interior trim of the one that I had located was all like green trim, also like green leather and stuff. And I'm like, it looked very military, and there's a lot of black trim on them, and the combination of the green with all the black trim, I didn't think it looked as nice in person as I wanted it to. Whereas the blue, I was like, oh my god, I have to have that. The blue is so nice.
This website is so terrible. I cannot, for the life of me, go to a configurator that lets me change the color to blue. It's like, this trim level is only available in these 2 colors. Just show me a blue one. Can you have a picture?
Make the window narrow. The whole website's broken, but if you make the window narrow, it changes the whole layout, and you get a thing on the side, and it works. It's like a medium. It's called Tasman blue. It's like a medium blue, kind of like I don't know if like a dusk kind of. I don't know. It's a really nice blue. So anyway, I saw that, and I looked at other inventory, and I'm like, and the used one had almost all the exact features I wanted, but it was way less money, and it was only very lightly used. And to address Casey's reliability question, I'm probably not going to own it for long enough for the manufacturer warranty, which is the first 4 years, to be over. And that covers all the stuff that a lease would cover. So I did the research on what does it cover? Does it cover things like corrosion? Yes. It was a pretty great fit, and based on the options of what's actually available anywhere in the region, it was an obvious choice.
Well, congratulations. That's exciting. It's the most Marco-y of Marco answers.
Yeah, it's a very, very predictable result.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's surprising nobody. I will say, like, so I drove it, bought it, did all that, drove it back to the ferry and everything. It is really nice. Like, it is still a very big car. And part of it is just that I'm not used to driving vehicles this size or height in the sky. And so I keep thinking it's bigger than it is. Like, I'll park it in a spot using the amazing camera system, and I'll be like, oh my God, like I feel like I'm just barely fitting here. And then I get out and I'm like, oh my God, I have like 4 feet around me. Like, it's fine. The instrument cluster has a bunch of like customization options and everything. None of them are amazing, but some are okay. I love having a sunglasses holder on the roof, the way like many cars do. One thing that Tesla sucks at is there's never anywhere in a Tesla to put your sunglasses.
You should get a Honda Accord. Sunglass holder right in the roof.
Golf R. I have 2 of them.
Yeah, every car has a place to put sunglasses except Tesla. I don't know what it is. Like, don't they have sun in California? Like, I'm pretty sure they're known for that.
No, it's always foggy, remember?
Oh, yeah, maybe. But yeah, so love the lots of little details of the interior.
And it has CarPlay, right?
Yes, it does. Wireless CarPlay.
Oh, welcome to the new world. Your Tesla is now ruined, baby.
I will say the center like array of buttons and knobs that is like the main control area for HVAC and some of the off-roading features and everything. It is a bit confusing. I think I just have to get used to it. There's a lot of good controls everywhere. I love one of the things I really love about the CarPlay. It's something I never have had before. I love that you can use the steering wheel button for Siri, and that it works instantly. Like, before, I would just like hold the Siri button on my phone going over regular Bluetooth in a Tesla or whatever. And when you do that, you have to kind of wait a second or two for the phone to tell the car, hey, I'm in phone call mode, so turn on your microphone.
Yep.
And then it kind of beeps, and you might hear the doo-doo, or it might get cut off or weirdly, and so you end up having to like retry or fail with Siri a lot because you have this weird delay to take care of. Whereas here, when you have a native Siri button on the wheel, you just push it, done. Like, that was really nice. And otherwise, the rest I don't really know yet. I haven't driven on the sand yet because you're not allowed to during the summer. I don't know how it'll go on the sand yet, but by all the reviews and everything, I'm very optimistic. It seems like it's extremely capable off-road. And that's about it.
So where is it? It's in the ferry parking lot now?
Yeah, I have parked my Tesla in Westchester, and I'm going to leave it there for a while. Because it's a paid-off Tesla that needs no maintenance basically ever. And so it's going to sit there for a while, and I'm going to figure out whether I'm going to keep it for the next 2 years and resume using it when I move back there, or whether I say, you know what, the Defender is good enough to serve this role for me for a while, and then maybe I'll sell the Tesla. But I don't know. That decision remains to be seen.
You don't forget to have someone go and start the engine on the Tesla at least once a week. You didn't answer the most important question. So Adam was hungry for food, and you gave him hot chocolate. Did you go to my pizza place that I recommended? Sounds like you didn't.
No. Instead, part of the agreement with Adam was that if he was going to come with me to these car dealerships, that we were going to go to Shake Shack afterwards. So that's what we did.
You went to Shake Shack instead of my favorite pizza place on the entire world that you were like 5 minutes from.
Sorry.
It's a shame. Well, when you go there, you get the Land Rover service. You can check it out.
Yeah, which you will be doing sooner than you think, I'm quite sure.
Actually, I literally am. Like that, because I ordered the rear recovery loops, and they're going to put them in like sometime soon, and I have to bring it in for that. So yeah, I'm going to be back there probably in a few weeks.
Has Tiff even seen it yet?
Nope. She declared, because when I'm in car buying mode, I get really annoying. Like, hey, what about this? Or what do you think about this? Should we do this? Should we do this? And eventually,
I don't know anything about this.
She's just like, just shut up and just get whatever you want. I don't care.
This sounds familiar.
She left it to you and Adam to figure out.
Yes. And Adam had such a blast. Like, I didn't know how that would go, because I was worried he'd be bored or, he loved it. He absolutely
That's awesome.
loved it.
That's really awesome.
It was almost worth buying a new car just for that wonderful bonding experience. He was like, this is my favorite trip we've taken in months. Like, he was so happy.
Oh, that's so great.
Can we buy a new car next month? And you should say, maybe.
If it's anything like laptops.
Well, the good thing is the novelty will have worn off, after this for a while. So, like, he's not going to care about cars again until it's actually time to get a new one years from now.
Yeah, I mean, it'll probably, like, maybe it was in high school, you can finally succumb to, we know where this is going. You can finally succumb to the pull and go boat shopping with him.
Oh, no.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
It's way off in the distance in Marco's future.
No, not a boat person.
It's like a giant black hole for money.
Yep.
No,
Oh, man.
I got cars for that.